Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Spitballin'. I'm here with my good buddy,
Kyle Amundsen.
And today we have kind of a special episode. We're going to try to do a top 10 of our favorite post-apocalyptic books.
Yeah, this genre, dystopian fiction, apocalyptic fiction.
Fission?
Fission. Apocalyptic fiction, or social science fiction is a term that I just learned.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
That's like 1984 and stuff like that,
Right,
but,
okay, sure. That makes sense.
Yeah, but so there's a lot of names for the genre. So this is a genre that Matt and I both love.
Yeah, well,
we have a love-hate relationship with.
Have a love-hate relationship with. Because the truth is, as far as a genre goes, it's as stark as a post-apocalyptic landscape.
Word,
right?
It's tough. There's a lot of stuff out there, but a lot of it, and especially putting together this list, I feel like there's more decent post-apocalyptic movies than there are fucking books.
Really, because when you messaged me and said we should try to do this, I was thinking books and movies. I didn't read your message very clearly, and I was like, man, I don't know if I can come up with
I mumble and text a lot.
5 movies that post-apocalyptic movies that I really like. So I don't know, but books was easier for me because I like a lot of books.
Well, see, there's a lot of work in the genre is like self-published. So even with the good ones, you might find some pretty sketchy writing. Some poor grammar.
It seems like you either have really good premise and shitty writing, or really good writing and shitty premise. It's hard to get the marriage of the two.
Yeah, even some of the ones that we really love. Like even like the Postman. Even that takes some. It doesn't seem. It seems a little inconsistent. The writing is really good. It takes a weird turn.
The writing is like wonderful, especially like the first half of the book. It's like almost a poem. And then it does kind of take some weird turns. So there was 2 that we kind of like both had agreed on, and we don't really want to put them in the list, but we definitely want to put them out there. One of them is The Postman, which is by
David Brin.
Yeah, really interesting book. And if you've seen the movie with Kevin Costner, don't worry about it.
Yeah, because
it's a different story.
Yeah, completely, totally fucking different story.
The only parallel is that it's a guy who it's a post-apocalyptic story about a guy who finds a postman uniform and uses it. That's it. I mean, other than that, there's really almost no.
He really does wind up sleeping with a married chick whose husband can't conceive or whatever. But she doesn't become a character. Yeah, not a real character. She's not. She doesn't burn down a cabin that they're shacked up in.
The version that you listened to, did you listen to the one where he did the foreword and talked about the rewrite and the changes and stuff?
No.
Oh, so. In 2020, what is his name? Brin,
David Brin.
He did a little rewrite of it, and that's the version I listened to. It really was very, very minor, though. He just changed some dates and some stuff, just to make it fit a little bit better. But he addressed the movie and said, basically that a lot of people ask him what he felt about the movie, and he said, "I'll just say this: it was beautiful." And it had a great musical score. Let's just leave it at that.
I love the movie.
Yeah, he did too. But he's like, is it my book? It's a movie.
No, it's the name. Movie. And the guy does find some postal stuff and postal. Okay, and also accidentally reestablishing the postal service and stuff does wind up becoming a big deal. But I mean, there's as far as the wholeness is like a completely different thing.
Yeah.
Everything about it, it's wildly, wildly, wildly different. And if you read it, you'll be like, that's 2 different stories.
It was interesting, though, because my memory of that book, which was 25 years old, really, it was quite a bit different than the actual book. And I remember saying in a podcast, I don't remember which podcast it was, but we were talking, or maybe it wasn't even a podcast, but I was talking about the first chapter, and they were talking about how, and that's not in the first chapter. That's like chapter 6, and he's like
I was waiting for that too.
Where he kind of like talks about how the end faded. But it is a beautifully written thing. And then the other
super well done.
So I definitely suggest that one. And then the other one is
also I just
go ahead.
I just wanted to give him props for like how imaginative that is. You know, like you're gonna write a post-apocalyptic story, and like the whole like the postman thing. You know,
good hook.
Like,
yeah,
just fucking like well done. You know, like really like. Just
I wonder
really
where
creative,
that
really
came
imaginative.
from. You also got to remember that book was written in the 80s.
Yeah,
you know,
it's an old book.
Yeah, and which at that time, well, I mean, the 80s were a fucking weird time because that was during the time period where we were like, you know, hiding under our desks and shit in school.
Yeah.
So there definitely was this idea of like, you know, some shit could go down. But one of the things I really liked about that book is that they never really got into the actual end. They just, because it takes place 16 years after the collapse, so it's a ways down the road, and they never really get into what happened. You don't even know who the bad guys were.
Yeah,
they allude to them, but you don't ever know like where the attack came from and what kind of attack it was. You know, there was some nuclear fallout, you know, but they never get into the specifics. And sometimes I like that. Sam Gibbons, one of our good buddies, Dr. Gibbons, who's been on the show multiple times, he made a statement in our little group about vague. What did he say? It was really well written. The fucker can write too.
Yeah.
Something about being precise yet vague. I think that's what he said.
Yeah.
So you need to know what the end was, but you don't need to spell it out.
Yeah, you don't need to beat it to death. Like, you know, like something happened and now we're here.
Right.
More than that, but not as much.
But you need to understand, or the writer needs to understand what happened.
Yeah.
He just doesn't necessarily need to tell you what happened. He needs to show you what the effects of that. Of that
and the part that Matt mentioned that he really liked, the part that like wasn't on the first page but was like showed up a little bit later. It was great because that's what that was about. Like we could have survived, you know, like could have survived the war, could have survived the plague, you know, could have survived the famine, you know, like. But what really got us, you know, like in that. You know, that was a really excellent part of that book.
Yeah, and I think that's what resonates with me because I think that human beings are a bunch of fucks, and like eventually, like that will be the downfall of us. You know, we as Americans or we as humans can survive a whole lot of adversity. But I mean, I think COVID showed us we can't survive a little bit of adversity. Right. So the other book that we didn't want to put on our list or we wanted to like put out there is Odd Billy Todd
by N.C. Reid.
And I've read quite a few things by N.C. Reid, and that's by far his best book.
Yeah, because I noticed that like most of his books are. I'm not a big fan of it's the end of the world. But this guy's the biggest badass on the planet.
Exactly.
I don't love those.
I'm not a huge fan of those either. And he definitely, a lot of his stuff is very military, rah-rah, whatever. Yeah. I think he's a pretty good writer. I think he's a super smart guy. But Odd Billy Todd is a wonderful story about a guy who has something.
Yeah, he's on the spectrum.
Autistic, you know, whatever. He's a little odd because they call him Odd Billy Todd.
Think if... Mad Max and Forrest Gump had a baby.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah.
And he is a super interesting character. You know, he operates from lists and stuff like that because his parents, he got two really, he lost his parents in a car accident. But he had two really loving parents, that, realized that they were, you know, that their child was like on the spectrum. And, you know, to compensate for some stuff, you know, and to turn some weaknesses into strengths, they got him in a really regimented routine, and he operates from lists and stuff like that, and writes things down, and it works really well for him. So well that he kind of establishes his own little community once the world goes to shit.
But not like in a way. completely unintentionally.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Right. That's one of the things I really liked about the book and about the character was he was never like, well, it's the end. Now this is what I need to do. I need to gather these people. No. He's just a good person who is operating on this wavelength, and then he's like, it all happens because he's doing what's right.
And extremely a little detached, really decisive about violence.
Well, he doesn't exactly have so I don't want to say he doesn't have a moral compass, because I think he does have a moral compass.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have he doesn't have the same scruples, let's say, of normal people. He doesn't look at it that way. He's very pragmatic.
Yeah, he does not toil over these decisions.
If the guy is bad, the guy needs to be done. That's it. It's it's obvious.
I guess you could say that some simple things are complicated for him, but some things that a lot of people consider complicated are very simple for him.
That is exactly it, right? Because he doesn't have that moral quandary. He's like, no, that guy's got to die. I mean, that's it. It's simple enough.
And then you're like, and you're reading the book, and you're like, oh, it's like that.
Right.
Well,
I mean,
then.
Does he feel bad about it? No worse than he would feel about butchering a pig because he needed to eat. It is what it is. It was an interesting book. There are, and again, there are some plot, holes.
Yeah,
and
it's not a perfect book.
No. And neither is the Postman.
Yeah,
but
in a completely different way, because the writing, the author of the Postman, really polished. Beautiful writing,
wonderful prose. Yes.
Yeah. Odd Billy Todd, NC Reed. Is not polished like that.
One thing though, and I don't know, because I didn't read it, I listened to it, and as did you, right?
Yes.
The narration was fucking great in Odd Billy Todd, because it was and I don't even know that reader's name, but it was done in kind of a southernish drawl, and it was really important to the book. It gave it its pacing, and I don't know, I really liked the narration.
Some of the things that they say though are just so goddamn country.
Very country.
Getting ready for this, I read all the reviews that I could find of these books, and
oh really?
There was some funny stuff. Like in the Postman, there was a guy that was mad because he was from Minnesota, and he was just pissed that they got names wrong and stuff like that. And I'm like, no, whatever.
Interesting, because I am also from Minnesota.
I didn't notice anything.
I didn't notice a fucking thing.
Or maybe I wasn't. Maybe I'm not some fucking crepe hanging fucking Karen that likes to bitch about everything like that guy was. And he read a scathing. It was a scathing review.
I just ran into this chick the other day named Karen, and I was like, how is it being named Karen these days? She's like, it sucks.
Man, that's gotta be worse. It's worse than being Kyle. I mean, I do not drink Monster. This is a rock star. I do not punch holes in drywall. I don't think I have ever punched a hole in drywall.
What is is a Kyle another? Is that a Karen? Is that like a male Karen or something?
I think Kyle's like a douchey. Oh.
Are you getting that buzz?
Yeah, I'm getting a little feedback.
Damn it.
But Kyle's like a douchey young guy that listens to probably listens to Five Finger Death Punch and drinks Monster and punches holes. And
so it's another meme. It's a Karen. I've never heard of a Kyle.
Yeah. Oh, really? Yeah. Lots of memes and shit.
Oh, interesting. Well,
but NC Reed. Some of those reviews. There was one. The one made me think of that was the guy from Tennessee. That's like, we don't say shit like more nervous than a long-tailed cat in a rocking chair factory. He's like, fuck you. We don't talk like that. But there was a couple of things.
I like busier than a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest. That's one of my faves.
Or was that busier than a 10-pecker billy goat? I like to combine those two as like your father would have.
Yes.
And busier than a one-legged man with a 10-pecker billy goat. Yeah.
Or as busy as a 10-peckered man in a rocking chair factory.
These things are fun. But another review, I loved this, called Odd Billy Todd offensive adolescent. Called it an offensive adolescent homosexual fantasy.
Yeah,
and I was like, yeah,
it was misogynistic.
Fair.
There were some misogynistic parts.
Yeah,
which but also I think that it was kind of reflective of what happens when shit goes bad.
Right.
I mean,
if you're thrust back into the Dark Ages, there, like you might set back a couple of social movements.
Right.
I don't want to make anyone angry, but I mean, like that's kind of how being thrust back into the Dark Ages works.
Right.
So
it does. Yeah. So I actually thought that added to the story. It didn't subtract from it.
Yeah, agreed. And besides, offensive adolescent homosexual fantasy.
I just like
sold,
the word. I just like. Yeah. Right. You had me at amosexual.
Yeah, I'm like this. Like this should be like like this should be highlighted as one of the selling points.
Amosexual.
Yeah, I've heard it before.
It's saying they're people are jacking off over their guns.
Yeah,
I like it
absolutely,
a lot.
for sure.
I like it a lot.
Guilty. And yeah, I can't argue with I'm reading the negative reviews and I couldn't really argue with them, but some of the things that a lot of these people hated, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't hate. But yeah, I loved it. And also being bring at least a prepper adjacent. Got kind of a prepper boner over this book,
Yeah, it was pretty prep.
Yeah. Kind of to a weird extent, like, well, you know what we need? A fire truck. Fuck yeah, we need it. And by the way, if you ever think to yourself, I should have a fire truck. Fuck yeah, you should have a fire truck.
You should have a fucking
Don't let
fire
people
truck.
tell you can't have a fucking fire truck. Live your best life. Get that fucking truck. But yeah,
that's the tagline for the show. Oh, we should probably explain where we're at. If you are watching this, we've
been kidnapped.
We are locked in a heavily fortified rec room
bunker.
No, we're at my shop. This is my glorious shop here, and one of my favorite places on earth. So we just thought we'd step out and do it here. Yeah. So this is where I get to do some of the magic that I do. Been recently helping Christine get some of her projects out the door. So we figured we'd do it here.
As you can see, there's tools and stuff behind us. Over here, here's the drawer where you keep the cocaine, and the marijuana, and the heroin. It's very important to keep the drugs separate. Over here are the sexual torture devices.
You do.
Dude, I just watched The Goonies again. That was in Mouth, Corey Feldman's character. I fucking love that character. You went out. Antia had the big screen Goonies thing out at the woods. Yeah, a little drive-in action,
which sounded cool. I wasn't a huge Goonies fan.
Oh, I love the Goonies.
Yeah.
I hadn't watched it since the 80s. So I mean, I was like, fuck yeah, I'll give it a chance, and it held up. That it does hold up, and it's another one of those movies. It's like watching The Outsiders, and you're just blown away by all these fucking actors that you feel like you they remember the old Brat Pack and shit. You know? Just amazing.
Macchio and Matt Damon.
Not Matt Damon.
Yeah, no, Matt. Wait, I'm actually named after him. Dillon.
Oh, Matt Dillon.
Matt Dillon. Though I actually think I'm named after the Matt Dillon from Gunsmoke. Because there was two Matt Dillons, right?
James Arness's character.
Yeah. So I was, So
there's another.
That's
why
how
the fuck do I know James Arness?
Yeah, right. But you can't remember yesterday. It's age. Okay, so what? So is that all we want to say about Odd Billy Todd?
Yeah.
Two really good books, though. You definitely want to put them on there. And
Absolutely.
then I think those two are the ones that we absolutely recommend. And then the rest of this list is maybe with caveats.
Yes.
Well, actually, not my first one.
Oh, well, see, not all mine are terrible, but some of these, like we said, a lot of these are self-published and stuff. And the genre is so. There's just a really lack of good, solid writing, and especially because I've there's some books that I think neither of us have read. Now, stop me if.
Well, Jesus Christ, there's got to be millions of them that neither of us have read.
But Alas, Babylon is one of the big names in the genre.
Never heard of it.
The Parable of the Sower.
Nope.
Lucifer's Hammer.
Nope.
The Earth Abides.
Nope.
The Girl with All the Gifts.
Nope.
Yeah.
These are ones that people put on their top 10, top 20.
Yeah, these are big big, like well-written books.
When I was researching, I kind of went through a couple of lists, and like a lot of them I have read, but I'm like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. Like it was like 1984, by George Orwell.
Yeah.
I mean, I read that. I remember reading that, and like it was when I was really even struggling to read. So I was probably 17 at the time, and I'm fighting through this book. And at the end, I was in Fargo, North Dakota at the time, and I finished the book in like homeroom or whatever, and I pissed me off, like rightfully so, and I fucking whipped it, and I hit this chick in the back of the head, and then like she's like, "What the fuck?" And like it was a really tiny school, and I was like the new guy, and it like whatever, and so then they were all like whatever, but the teacher was like, hey, and I said, I'm really sorry. And he's like, why'd you whip it? And I was like, I just finished 1984, and he goes, oh, it's okay. I was
like, well, and if you would have been trying to like take your own life, you could have told him that you just finished reading The Road by Cormac McCarthy.
Yeah. Have you ever, like why don't you have you never watched The Road all the way through?
No.
What are you doing?
I'm watching The Road.
Well, I actually think I have some footage of you doing it last night. So
fair enough. Now, here's the thing about that story.
Did you read it?
I have not read it.
Yeah, fuck that book. Or fuck yeah. No.
Because we won't read it because we've seen the movie.
I saw 20 minutes of the movie and tried to
kill
myself.
You didn't finish the movie?
Fuck no.
I made it all the way through, and I was it's not a lighthearted romp.
There is something to be said about dystopian future and just fuck you future. Like I don't really want to watch the world die.
Yeah.
Like if that's the case.
Yep.
Well, fuck it.
Right. You need a little hope, and not just like, man, I really want to keep my son alive for another half hour before the cannibals eat him. We're all dead in fucking we're all like all dead tomorrow. But like, hey, let's struggle to survive for a couple hours.
I mean, maybe those stories are important so we don't like fucking screw the pooch in the meantime.
Yeah, because you never know. Aliens might stop and pick you up. That could happen. I mean, that's what happened to, Arthur Dent, right?
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, man, it was a tough one.
Yeah.
The other ones on that list of like greats though that I was like nope it's like Fahrenheit 451. I'm like no, that's not what I'm talking about. So there was a lot of those like classics, a bunch of Philip K. Dick stuff, which I like Philip K. Dick, but no, I'm not talking about like I don't know, like that kind of thing. When I think of like, I'm thinking of this world, shit changed. These are the ramifications, and this is how people like are doing now. That's kind of what I want to hear about.
And part of the reason, and here's another thing. Like, there's a lot of different, like apocalypse. What am I looking for? Like a lot of flavors of a lot of apocalyptic flavors.
There is, yeah.
There's strawberry mango. There is EMP. There is banana. There is
but I mean,
plague.
There's like plague, and then there's like combinations of it. But then there's also alien invasion,
which I don't dig.
Okay. So, and I really should have written this one down because it's not in my top 5.
Mostly, I just don't like the alien invasion movies because I think they're racist.
What?
I think they're racist.
Why?
Because I know some aliens and they're cool.
Oh,
they wouldn't harm anyone.
I read a book not a long time ago, a couple years ago, but it wasn't a fucking great series. It really wasn't. And it was about, so here we are talking about it, but it was about an alien invasion. But there was a chapter in it that was so fucking good. Like, I feel like I want to collect chapters of books to like, and just compile like a fucking anthology of a really, really well written chapters. But there was a chapter in this book about this couple that like before the end, they were like super miserable and scraping to get by and da 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 da. And then, now there's no power and there's whatever. And they've like taken over this like fucking kind of like, wealthy house somewhere in the hills. And they're like, they have their garden going and all this shit. And like and he says to her one day, he said, I'm fucking happy. And she's like, yeah, me too. And he goes, it's funny, we had to wait till the world ended to be happy. And she goes, I don't think we needed to. And I was like, oh,
that's
snap.
Pretty brilliant.
Right? Because really, their life, they could have easily had that life that they were living today.
Yeah.
Just by giving up all the shit that doesn't matter.
Yeah. Leading that off the grid life or something and fucking focusing on each other.
It was a powerful fucking chapter.
And see, that's the thing. Like, there's some good writing out there in these flavors that I do not, because I don't really like the zombie stuff either.
And then there's zombie. Now I do have one on my list. We gotta get into
I have
the
one
list,
zombie
bro.
on my list.
We gotta get into the list.
Oh yeah, that's true.
We're supposed to be doing a top 10, and we're trying to keep it short. You're doing a fantastic job.
I do have, right.
Keep it in short. It's our specialty here at Spitballing.
As long as we brought up the aliens, though, I have an honorable mention book, and the author of that book was kidnapped by aliens, and he actually wrote about it. Did you? Are you familiar with Communion?
Yeah, I seen the movie. I liked it. Jodie Foster. I have a story about it, but go ahead.
Oh, the alien. Yeah. Anyway, the I think it's the same author, Whitley Strieber.
Okay.
Who our fact checker is not a fan of.
Okay.
But also wrote like Wolfen, a horror movie back in the day. But wrote a book. It was actually like kind of a preteen, like tween, kiddish book that I read. It was probably the first thing that I read in that genre. Way back in the day. I was probably in like 5th or 6th grade when I read this. And it was called Wolf of Shadows. And it takes place in Minnesota.
Okay.
And there's a nuclear war. And there's a woman and her daughter that like get out of the city and stuff. And they are befriended by like a wolf that like adopts them. Well, the whole story is told from the wolf's perspective. Now it's short. It's like 100 pages.
And the wolf's just like, ooh.
Right? Like,
tasty.
I'm definitely going to kill and eat you later, but I'm going to try to keep you alive until then because, I can drag you or you can walk on your own, but, I'm not stupid. I'm just a dog. But yeah, so Wolf of Shadows by the alien kidnap by a guy that got probed.
No, wait a second. Communion is not written by that guy.
Are you sure?
Communion, the movie about about with Jodie Foster where they travel, I'm pretty sure that's written by the fucking astrophysicist that did Cosmo and all that. We're gonna have to do some research on it.
Yes.
But I have a story about the movie Communion. Me and Shannon O'Neill went to it, and I really I was looking forward to it. I like Jodie Foster and what's the other guy who always talks like he has shit in his mouth? I don't know. I like him.
Christopher Walken?
No.
Oh, no, that's not his problem.
He also talks like he has shit in his mouth, but no.
He just uses weird punctuation.
I don't know what the fuck his name is, but he was the male lead in it or whatever. So we're in there in the theater, and there's really nobody else in there except like these 9 people from like a group home and their 2 staff. And this is not the fucking movie to bring people Communion? From the group home. It's like dark and it's not really scary, but it's like it's very intense and whatever. And the whole fucking time there's this guy behind me rocking back and forth. He's probably 10 rows behind me, and he's like, I'm scared. I'm scared. Man. And I'm like, bitch, get him. Yeah, he's scared.
Take it easy on the brother. Like, do I have to get him out of here?
So it wrecked the experience for me. But I watched it again. I really liked that movie. It's a great movie. Carl Sagan, goddammit, that's who wrote Communion.
Really?
I am fucking pretty sure. Shelley, let us know.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, we also do.
Yeah, my phone's in front of me, but I'm not gonna look that shit up.
No, fuck no.
We don't do that.
I get pissed when people look shit up now. I'm like, hey, what was the? And they're like, I'm like, I am asking you as a fucking human. All right, stop looking at the goddamn Oracle.
If we're stumped, then you can bust your phone.
After a half an hour, I would much rather you just lie to me than fucking like, or give me your best guess. I don't like. God damn it. Maybe I'm just irritable lately. I don't fucking know.
It's hanging out with me. So, what do you got for the rest of the list?
Well, the first thing on my list, I was trying to, and I didn't, these are not necessarily in an order of my top
No, mine either.
Because how do you do that?
Yeah.
But you were talking about tween books, and I was kind of desperate for something new to read a while ago and whatever, and I ended up, and when I say read, I mean listen, but, fucking deal with it.
Whatever.
I stumbled onto the Hunger Games, and I devoured that series in a fucking heartbeat. I've never watched the movies. I'd heard of them.
I think the movies are great.
Yeah, I think I watched like 20 minutes of the first one, but not because just in passing. Like, it wasn't that I wasn't interested. I just didn't. Well, I wasn't sitting down to watch it, and like I kind of have to like make a decision to sit down and watch a movie, or I don't watch it. If it's on, I don't like. You can't suck me in. I got shit to do.
My favorite, I really like the whole concept of the rich guy as an S&M fan who meets women and.
I don't know what you're talking about. But, man, The Hunger Games.
50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah. That's one of the
most
horrible books I ever read. I actually read that book. I don't know why I did.
Not.
Yeah, that bad. Okay, but
I love The Hunger
Games. They are super, super well written. They are incredibly entertaining.
And very much a dystopian future.
Super dystopian future. And they have like a fucking really good, uplifting message. And also, they are like... I want every young girl to fucking read those books.
Very
and
empowering.
I want them to get into fucking archery. Because it made me want to shoot my bow so much. It was like, it gives you, what it was amosexual.
Amosexual, yeah.
Yeah, this was like fletching. I got nothing. I got no good. But it gave me a bow boner.
It made you an archophile?
I had a bow boner. Oh, an archophile. I like that too. Yeah, so that would be my first pick. And even if you don't really like young adult fiction, go fuck yourself because it's fucking great. Well written. I mean, I loved Harry Potter, like they were good books. But I actually think The Hunger Games are better. And I think they're like in a...
I don't know. I can't really nail it down, but I feel like listening to like YA fiction is easier than like reading it. I mean, I think probably because of the stuff that you're doing. Like when I'm reading, when I sit down and read something, I feel like I'm making a more of an investment in my time. Whereas when I have my headphones on and I'm listening to books, I just am doing it throughout the course of my day as I do fucking everything.
Right.
I don't know if that's it at all, or if it has anything to do with it. But yeah, that's a fucking good pick. Now that makes me want to read The Hunger Games.
I was down in St. Cloud the other day at Savers, and I ran into your lovely wife, and I'm listening to something live on my headphones. I mean, I just fucking listen to if I am not actively engaged in a conversation with somebody else, I'm fucking listening to shit on my headphones.
Sometimes even if the conversation goes south, then I'm like, oh, excuse me. And now I'm listening to something that I want to listen to.
And so she's trying to get my attention, and I don't notice her. And finally, I hit the side of my head. I'm like, oh, sorry, I was listening to something. And she goes, that's okay. That's my life. I was like, oh, you poor thing. So I hear what you're saying. Yeah, so that would be my first pick, The Hunger Games. Susan Collins. I mean, yeah, they're super, super popular. But I really suggest it, especially if you're a young female, but just really for everybody.
And if you've never heard of The Hunger Games, welcome to our planet. We're glad you brought back Whitley Strieber. The guy that wrote
The Wolf thing. Yeah. Not Commune.
It was not the best callback, but so my first one. His one, it was okay, and this made the list just because it was fun.
Okay.
This was called America Falls by Scott Medberry. Now it's fun. It's definitely not a very professional book or series of books. I like those box sets so much.
And you will find a lot of like post-apocalyptic fiction, like come in, 56 hours for one credit.
Yeah, yeah. And then if you have the masochistic tendencies like me, even a bad one,
you'll
like,
listen to all 56
the whole
hours.
fucking thing. Yeah, and I'll bitch about it later because I'm old and I like that. But it's fun. It's not very professional. The writing is kind of sloppy.
What's the premise?
So it's we come under attack. We being the United States comes under attack. There's by a disease engineered by the Chinese.
Okay.
It kills everybody older than like 16, 17.
Okay.
Who is not Chinese.
Okay.
So if you're of Chinese descent, you're okay. If you're like 15 years old, you're okay.
Okay.
Anyway, that's what they use to like clear out, like the adults and stuff, so they can roll in and enslave the kids.
Oh.
Except for like a lot of, of course there'd be a huge die off of babies and stuff like that. Now the author really doesn't do his homework on a lot of stuff, and I would imagine like that sounds like a pretty hard disease to engineer. But it's okay because later they like reverse engineer it so that it does kill the Chinese.
But this is in your top
spoiler
5
alert
recommendation.
I said, the book was fun. It was still fun. Like massive die-offs are fun, but and there was parts, like I said, like just fun. I kind of like the characters and shit like that. Some of them are pretty savvy kids. Some of them are just kids. Now, there's a couple of things like when you write teenagers in a lot of books, holy shit! I want to ask like a lot of authors. I'm like, have you ever been around a teenager?
Right.
Like, all they want to do is like play on their phone and fuck. Like it's whatever. I just like these teenagers are really these weird ideas that people have of teenagers.
Right.
And I'm like, that doesn't sound like a teenager. Now, teenagers in the apocalypse, I don't know how they would act then.
I mean, it depends on like how far we're in,
Yeah.
Like, man, I think if let's just say there's an EMP strike and like everybody's like mobile devices went dead, I think we'd lose half of the teenagers within the first week.
Oh yeah,
to
certainly.
Suicide,
Yeah.
or murder.
Yeah.
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 So, but I mean, like I don't know. We talked a little bit about The Walking Dead, but beforehand. But I mean, I fucking love The Walking Dead.
I love The Walking Dead too.
I can admit it. But I really enjoyed watching Carl kind of like grow up in that.
Yeah,
world.
I mean,
and now
it is important to recognize that a lot of like for most of our existence, like you're 15. If you make it to 15 or 16 years old, you're a fucking man.
Yeah. So I liked watching Carl go from like whatever he was, 8 to like a 15-year-old, and how he became a badass. And that's interesting. But then you look at Judith, who was born into the apocalypse, and Judith is a fucking sword-wielding barbarian that has all of the best traits to make it through. She's my fucking favorite character. I just love her. Her little fucking sword. I love Judith. Love me some Judith.
But yeah, so teenagers, I don't know how teenagers would really be in the apocalypse, but I don't know, like there's a lot of these things that I read, I'm like, oof, that doesn't sound like teenagers to me. And there is one thing about this book that's like, every time I find this in a book, it drives me crazy. How reluctant a lot of characters are to kill.
Yeah, it drives me nuts.
Especially like in this book, there's one that would really drive me nuts because it's like, okay, if you run across a bad guy and he's already tried to kill you and your friends, and he's in the process of trying to kill you and your friends, and you know that if he lives, he's definitely going to try to kill you and your friends again. I don't know how much it's reasonable to worry about like how you shouldn't kill him, because you probably should kill him at that point.
And I'm not saying that people won't react that way, but they'll just die.
Yeah, that's called that's part of natural selection.
That's natural selection. Yeah, but Peyton and I used to talk like for hours and hours and hours about the fucking apocalypse. Like it was his favorite subject, and he would like to pose questions to me. And I I love that fucking kid. And he was like, Dad, okay, let's say it's real early in the apocalypse, right? I'm like, okay. And he's like, and you end up having to kill somebody. I'm like, okay, so it's like Tuesday. And he's like, yeah. Would you eat him? And I said, you said it's early in the apocalypse. I said, no, I'm not going to eat him. I'm going to butcher him and store the meat, but I ain't going to eat him. And he's like, good answer.
Love it. Yeah. And there's also another thing that shows up in a lot of these books that drives me fucking nuts. The idea that average Joe who stumbles across a weapon that he has not trained with, and this guy has no combat experience or training, and he's going up against like and they wind up going up against like trained like soldiers and mercenaries and shit like that.
Yep.
And doing well.
Yeah, that drives me fucking crazy too.
That's not how that shit works.
Yeah, you're right.
So like the best way for average Joe to level the playing field against like experienced and trained killers is ambush.
Yeah.
Outside of that, you're gonna get fucking murked. Like you going, I mean, that shit. Like there's a reason that experience and training are motherfuckers. So some average fucking schmuck off the street,
I know I've brought this up before, but there's the scene in 300 where Leonidas is bringing his 300 to Thermopylae, and the other guy comes up and he's like,
because he brought like 1,000 guys.
Yeah, I brought 1,000 guys. You only got 300, and he's like, yeah, but I brought 300 warriors.
Yeah,
like,
go ahead, because he asks everybody, he's like, what did you do? What do you do when you're not on campaign? I'm a potter. What do you do? Oh, I train horses. Like, what do my guys do?
They fight. They fucking fight. And the thing is that and that's a little bit of hyperbole, but it's also true. Like the trained trump the untrained every fucking time. Like that's all there is to it. And I mean, yeah. There's something to be said about like the ruthless too, though. Like just practical experience. There's places in the world where a guy might not have gone through boot camp, but he's a fucking seasoned killer. Because he grew up in seasoned killer land. And then there's also, man, we're jumping all over the place, but the movie you really wanted me to watch, Apocalyptico.
Yeah,
I didn't care that much for it, but I did really like the part where because that was kind of that deal. You had a guy who was not, I mean, they're all trained warriors, but he was not the fucking, creme de creme of that world.
Yeah.
And how did he win? Home field advantage.
Yeah.
He knew the terrain. He knew where so he was able.
And substantial luck.
And really fucking lucky. Because that drives me
But I mean,
nuts too,
he wasn't going to beat these guys. Like, he wasn't going to, take them on like head to head. Because that's, you get
the only scene I really, really, really liked was the fucking beehive scene. That was pretty awesome.
I fucking love that movie. Yeah. If you haven't seen Apocalypto, check it out.
Isn't it Apocalyptico?
I think it's Apocalypto. Yeah.
Oh. Okay, whatever. I'm going to put a call in there. I like it better.
That's all right. You can do that. All right. What else you got?
Okay, second one, and this one is debatable if it's even post-apocalyptic, but it's the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. They're probably some of my favorite fucking books, period, right? The debate is whether or not that's actually a post-apocalyptic world, or if it's a different world, or if it's a dystopian world. My argument is that it kind of is because it's the world after The Stand, and a lot of people don't really realize that. But
The Stand is counted among, that's one of the all-time great. Like,
so you really have to think of the Dark Tower as the sequel to The Stand, taking place far after The Stand. So I love it,
and really it's fiction. Every work of fiction is its own alternate reality.
Right, obviously. But man, I fucking love the Dark Tower. And I just am, I wish so much that they would turn that into an actual series. And I know for a while,
like HBO will option it or something.
Yeah,
like that. Cool.
What's his name? Happy Days guy, great director.
Oh, Ron Howard.
Ron Howard optioned it and was looking at really doing a full-on Game of Thrones epic fucking series, and I don't think it's ever like really gotten off the water. But
so you didn't love the Idris Elba like Gunslinger,
the movie, movie, I didn't hate it. I mean, it was fine. Like, I'm not super critical of, like, I'm like, it's a 2-hour movie and a 4 million hour book. Like, you can't do it.
Not even.
You want to just give me a little glimpse into that world of the Gunslinger? I'm cool with that. I didn't hate that he was black. That was, some people like got all bent out of shape that he was like, how do you, like, I don't even know if King ever really mentioned the race of the person from an alternative universe. You know what I mean? It wasn't even a thing. That didn't bother me at all. I mean, yeah.
There was a page that looked like a printout from like Ancestry.com where he handles that in that book. But it was a courtesy chuckle. It wasn't even a good joke. I realized that halfway through it.
I was like, what are you talking about? Oh, I get it now. Yeah, but I loved it. I really, like, I don't know. Yeah, and you never read them.
No.
So, yeah, so I'm a huge Stephen King fan, and actually I had several of his on my list that I had to cross off, like, oh shit, I can't remember what it's called. The Sphere? Is that what it's called? The one where the dome, that's what it's called, the dome. And I was like, that's not really post-apocalyptic, but it really gets into what happens if shit hits the fan in a small area and you're like trapped. That was a very interesting book. There's a lot of good ones. But really, The Dark Tower is, and even in King, according to King, I mean, it's the zenith. It is his, it's his thesis.
Oh, damn.
And it interweaves with every other book he's ever written. Like, there's every bad guy's in there, every good guy's in there. It's all over the place. It's very interesting. The walking dude shows up. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I love me some King.
My next one is My Dead World by Jacqueline Druga. Now, this one is kind of a rarity because it's told from a woman's perspective, which unfortunately that is kind of rare in the genre. But
it is actually. I can't think of any other. Well, I guess Hunger Games, but other than that, I can't think of any other that have.
Yeah, they're few and far between. But this one, I liked the characters in this. Like, they're not scientists, and they're not Navy SEALs, and they're not, they both like are like, I think she's a manager at a Arby's, and he works at like a grocery store or something. But she does have a brother who's really smart that works for like the CDC or whatever. So they've got like a little advance notice. So they like fortify, they bring supplies up to her dad's cabin, and just get ready for.
They have their Ange. They have their Ange in their pocket.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was gonna say like so. Whoa, they have they just happen to have a brother that was. Well, we've got a friend that isn't
right. No, it's not that weird to get a call and be like, dude, this is serious.
Yeah. Shit. And yeah, so so like that, it's a it's a little preppery, which I like. But see, there's parts that are kind of frustrating. Again, it could have used a good edit, but it wasn't quite. It wasn't as unprofessional as some of these books. But one of the problems with this is the cabin is right next to a campground, and the guy that runs the campground is just like taking in strays, just refugees, and like sets up a fucking hospital and like tries to.
Well, I can imagine there are going to be dumbasses like that.
Yeah, trying to help everybody.
I'm a fucking social worker, and I'm just like, yeah, fuck them, fuck those guys. We're gonna have to die.
Now this is different from the rest of the stuff on my list because zombies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there are zombies, which makes it all the worse. That hey, the campground next door, yeah, all these people are turning into zombies. Fuck my life, you know.
So how, like, I'm interested. Like, the whole zombie apocalypse idea seems like the most outrageous. I mean, I think alien invasion is actually a little bit more likely than everybody turning into zombies.
Yeah.
On the other hand,
there's just some
it's really fascinating it's a really fun world to explore.
Yeah.
So what causes zombies? I mean, what's the...
Well, and these are like these are fast zombies. So I mean, you know, and it's kind of like the 28 Days Later thing.
Yeah,
which is a fucking scary movie.
That's
like
really scary one.
Like slow zombies.
We could easily do a top 10 zombie movies or
that
zombies.
Would be fun. Yeah, fuck yeah, they're everywhere. Because everybody loves zombies.
World War Z. Like, I really liked those zombies.
Yeah, they were fucking terrifying.
Movie. Yeah.
You know, and as much as we like The Walking Dead, like we could talk about that shit for hours. But yeah, World War Z, those are fucking, you know, where they're almost like a hive mind type fucking, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, those were awesome. And 28 Days Later and shit. Fast zombies are actually fucking terrifying. Slow zombies, you're just like shooting ducks in the barrel.
Fast, smart zombies. Yeah, scary.
Yeah, so these zombies, you know, the violence isn't like over the top. There's some, you know, one thing like in these like post-apocalyptic stories and shit. If nobody in your group dies, that disappoints me.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
they gotta drop like flies.
Yeah, people are gonna die. You know, and you like if you're writing a book like that, you should illustrate that by killing somebody off. Killing a lot of people off, probably.
Yeah.
You know, you're not just going to be like, yeah, and then everybody died but them. The end.
Yeah.
You know?
If Martin has taught us anything about good storytelling, it's that you cannot be afraid to kill the good guy.
Yeah. You need to develop, you know, you need to work on character development. You need to always be thinking about character development because you got to kill some people. If you want to make an omelet, you got to break some fucking eggs. You got to break some Ned Stark eggs.
Exactly.
But yeah, this was pretty good. And man, she lost, you know, and she winds up losing a lot of people close to her, and you know that makes it like a little grittier, a little more, you know, realistic, if you will. But yeah, pretty fucking good book.
Interesting. So I guess I'll jump down because since we're on zombies. So, and this one was tough for me to put on the list, but the reason that I like it so much is because I really enjoy the world they created. And it's called The Extinction Cycle. And that's the series. There's 50-ish or so books out there that are connected, that take place in this world. And I talked to you about this before. And many of them are not written by basically the guy, Nicholas Sansbury Smith. That sounds... Was it? No, different guy. But Nicholas Sansbury Smith, he wrote this world, and now people write in this world all the time, and it's really interesting.
You know, I kind of feel like at this point we should throw the 20 to 30 minute thing out the window anyway, and just fucking roll with it.
So, the premise
shit just changed.
The premise to this is
remix.
The premise to this book series is that and it's based, I mean, fairly, like, realistically on science. During Vietnam, the U.S. government had a program to basically make super soldiers, right? NVK-99, whatever it was. And essentially it was a drug that was supposed to, like make, super soldiers, right? Well, it goes badly. Like, they never stopped the program, and it ends up going badly, and essentially it turns humans into variants. That's what they call
cyborgs?
them. No, it's pretty crazy. And some of it I just think it's like kind of fucking really crazy and whatever. But it's a monster. It's a monster movie. With a kind of an interesting premise, but essentially fucking like people just fucking turn into monsters, and a lot of different kind of monsters and whatever. But what I like best about it is not necessarily the series. It's the world and the contributors to the world, because there are all. There's a new one out about New Zealand, about what happened in the extinct. It's called Extinction New Zealand, written by somebody else who like is, I think, edited or whatever by Smith, and he basically just takes submissions to his world, and like it's cool as fuck,
man.
And I think he helps the writing along or whatever, and he's a decent writer. Now that motherfucker will kill people, though. That is one thing I like really enjoy about his stuff, is that like main characters are not sacred, and neither are their appendages.
Which is great. As much as it feels like getting kicked in the fucking balls,
there's
like at the
hardly
moment.
a person with 2 arms and 2 legs anymore in this world. I swear to God, he's just like fucking lost his arm. God damn it, you know. Yeah. Pretty interesting. Also, I don't know. I don't want to like wreck this story, but it's interesting how it. I'm interested in hive mind, and I'm interested in the idea of like the fungal membrane. I mean, it was part of my DMT trip, but there's also like an element to that with these variants where they start they start to like be able to communicate, and they like run this like essentially fungus. It's a fucking crazy ass book.
And see the whole like shared world where you've got multiple contributors is something that Matt and I are very interested in.
Yeah. So we both read
Wild Cards.
Dream Songs. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, which is a Martin anthology.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, it was 60 hours of fucking book, but you know, but it was all of Martin's short stories and other, you know, novellas or whatever through the years. And I mean, we're both jonesing for some more Martin, so I get it. And some of them are wonderful, some of them are horseshit. You know, everything he wrote was not Game of Thrones. I'm telling you that right now. But some of it was fucking really good.
Fucking super good.
But in between, he would do, you know, 2 or 3 stories narrated by different people, and then he would do a chapter where he would just talk about what was, you know, going on.
Which were some of my favorite parts.
My favorite parts. I could have listened to 50 hours of Martin explaining where his stories came from and one of my favorite parts of the book was when he was talking about how he met this girl and they moved to Texas, and she was a big gamer. She liked to play the role-playing games. And Martin had never played role-playing games before because he was such a fucking geek, like, which should mean he was probably into role-playing games. But he was like
comic / sci-fi geek.
Like in his fucking room typing away geek, rather than like the getting together with buddies and
wasn't cool enough to be in a Dungeons and Dragons group.
Right, he was that big of a geek.
Whew.
So his new woman gets him into gaming, and all of a sudden they become fucking huge in like playing these role playing games, and of course he's like one of the greatest writers of all time. And who do you think his friends are? They're all fucking writers. So they're getting together doing these games, and they end up coming up with their own universe, and it's called Wild Cards.
Yeah. So they run this Supers campaign.
Which is pretty much the lamest of role-playing campaigns, but whatever.
I like it.
You do?
I
always find it.
I love supers.
I hate superpowers. I think I like normal people going above and beyond.
I haven't played in the Supers campaign since I was a kid, but like after reading like Wild Cards, I'm like, holy shit, that would be amazing.
The premise is really stupid. There's not everybody, but on a certain day or whatever.
Oh, it's an alien attack.
Oh, that's right. It's an alien attack. Yeah.
So, like, there's a certain group of aliens. So, an alien shows up, like, oh my God, you know, like, you guys are about to come under attack by my people. Like, I'm here to help you. And they're like, oh, let's put this guy on ice, you know. Meanwhile, they start looking for the device that he describes to them, which fucking gets out. Now, how
recently have you read this? Because that wasn't in this. That wasn't in this book.
No, I just started reading Wild Cards.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, they're fun. It was been years ago since I read it. Now.
Fucking great. So anyway, this a guy gets a hold of him, like a villain, an arch criminal, gets a hold of this thing, and he's going to release it, and there's a fight, and anyway, it winds up getting released over New York. And two things can happen. Like the variant, it's wild cards, and what is it? Wild cards and jokers.
Yep.
So you can either wind up with cool superpowers, or you can wind up with horrible deformities that sometimes come with some powers and stuff.
Or you can wind up with really dumb superpowers.
Yeah.
Or really amazing superpowers. So it's because it's wild.
Yeah.
You don't know. I mean, your superpower might be, like, I don't know.
So in this alternate reality, like it's set against, so like this takes place, like I think it's in the late 40s. So like then like you go down like through history and shit of different different superheroes and stuff. Like there's some really interesting ones like Vietnam War era,
because mostly they takes place relatively modern day, but they're always referencing like the original cast of superheroes and stuff that kind of like like whatever, yeah.
And there's like a period like sometimes they're fashionable, but sometimes there's like McCarthy era like witch hunts, like trying to. And it's really interesting. So some of these great fucking authors.
It's interesting. It's not really. It's not a great. It's not a great premise, right?
Okay,
it's like a fairly like it's honestly it's like a half thought out world. But the really cool part is all of these amazing authors that like mostly started gaming with fucking Martin, because he became. What did Martin do? Classic like. Super brain author. He's like, oh yeah, I've never played D&D before. I'll be the dungeon master. And so he becomes the DM. So he's kind of like controlling the world. And if you have no idea what the fuck we're talking about, we're not talking to you. And then all of these guys are playing. So they all start contributing stories in this shared world.
Which I'm fairly certain was a GURPS campaign, by the way.
Oh, I'm sure it was a. I'm sure it was a. Whatever they call it, D6. Whatever.
Yeah, like, I mean, eventually Wildcards, like they release their own.
Yeah, they actually have their own role-playing games.
It's fucking awesome. Good for them.
But, there's a Game of Thrones one too.
Yeah.
Which I don't know, but somebody else created that. So, they all contribute to the shared world. Okay, so first of all. These books have been wildly successful. There's 70 of them or something, just a huge amount of books. And no one author has written them all. It's all a bunch of different contributors. But they all live in the same universe, and they all carry the same overarching story. And then Martin's job has been, he contributes, but his job has been to basically be the DM to make sure that the storylines don't conflict, to edit them, and then...
Because these characters show up, like your character might show up in somebody else's story.
Totally, might show up in somebody else's story.
And do, so I mean...
So you have to make sure, if you're describing somebody else's character, that you're not fucking that character up in a way.
You don't want to step on any toes like that.
But really interesting. So I was listening to this book, and I thought, and I don't know, maybe most of you out there don't know, but I've been wanting to really write for a long time. I have started my memoirs, but I don't know. It's weird to do your memoirs when you're not even 50, and I just have a lot of creative ideas, and I want to do more writing, but I really suffer from the whole desire for immediate gratification, and I'm like, to fucking write a goddamn book and wait for fucking ever for your fucking editor to read it and then give you feedback, and I don't have that kind of patience.
It's a slog. It's a process.
But I love the idea of having a shared world where you can contribute a story to the group, and then it's immediate gratification. They get to read it. They get to see what they think about it. They get to give you immediate feedback. You might have to do some editing, and then you get to read their story. So we started with just the three of us, or four of us, actually, and then Tharg just has not participated that bitch. It was me, Kyle, and Sam, and Tharg. And And right now we're just trying to hammer out the world.
Ironing out some fucking, like trying to figure out the, what flavor are,
And we all kind of decided
if we
up
are
front
kiwi strawberry.
we wanted to do something post-apocalyptic. And now the question is just what direction do we want to take? And the reason for that is obvious. Just because we're talking about it here, there's a large gap in really, not like we're going to fill it. Jeez, that's the thing. Like that seems so egotistical. But
the thing is, there's so many bad authors in this genre. I mean, we feel like we'll fit right in.
Exactly. Okay. Yes. Maybe that's a better way to say it. Because it's not like we're going to fill the
or
gap.
Or at least be able to successfully hide out if we stink.
Yeah. Well, my thought was more that, like, I want a good story in a post-apocalyptic world. I can't seem to find it, so let's just tell it. Let's just find the good story. Let's just find the good story in and of ourselves. Maybe it never goes any farther than us in our little group just sharing stories back and forth.
Which is fine, too.
Exactly.
Because if you know us, if you know anything about us, like, it doesn't bother us that 3 people are watching this right now.
Right. And
because there's also 3 people listening.
But I was thinking that once we start getting going, if we could get our friend of the show, Chad, online, and we could probably get him to do some audio versions of the of it. I really don't think about anything else anymore.
Here's the thing. So there's a couple of things that I stopped listening to books for during the course of my day.
Okay.
One of those is when I'm listening to something that's so fucking stupid that I need to take a break from it.
Yeah.
Which is what I'm going through right now, because I'm listening to another really stupid box set.
And then you say take a break from it, like meaning you'll go back.
Yeah. Oh, I will.
And you can't make it through Breaking Bad. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Because I have to watch that. So I'll take a break from that, and I'll listen to, like right now I'm popping back and forth. I'm learning about fucking like Aristotle and fucking and I'm reading Marcus Aurelius Meditations.
Sorry, but what Aristotle? Are you doing it like teaching company, or where are you getting that?
Just some shit that I found. It's the same. It's like the Plato one that I read. And it's like Plato in 90 minutes. So just I'm like, well, this is just 90 minutes. Like I already know about Plato, right? So I learned fucking 10 times as much as I fucking thought that I knew before.
I listened to an 18-hour series on Alexander. And the Macedonians. Amazing.
A fucking hilarious part of the Aristotle one talks about like the battle of wills between him and Alexander.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well,
basically,
actually,
Alexander won because you got the fucking like one of the finest minds in the history of mankind up against the biggest fucking ego in all of the world.
But a lot of people don't know that Aristotle was
his tutor.
Was Alexander's tutor, and
because they were family friends, they went back like fucking like a couple generations.
I think he was his dad's tutor. Aristotle was his dad's tutor, and yeah, really interesting. You think like I'm always like that. You think you know about whatever? No, you fucking don't.
Yeah.
Like go look into it.
And really, like an interesting stuff,
I
too.
don't know. I listened to 18 hours about Alexander. I still don't know shit about Alexander the Great. I mean, like, I know a few things. I do think he had a traumatic brain injury, which is interesting. We'll talk about. I gotta take a quick break. I gotta pee really bad.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Spitballing, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Matt Taylor here with my good buddy
Kyle Amundsen.
Yeah. So before I had to go pee, we were talking about the little shared world and kind of like what universe we wanna be in.
Yeah. So like we were talking about all the different flavors and shit. So we're trying to nail that down, and we've got it nailed down to a couple of possibilities. Either alien zombies.
That's probably the best choice.
Or Amazon shuts down and the world and the world falls into fucking chaos and anarchy.
Well, I think it might.
My world would.
Man, just when Prime went to like not being able to deliver in 2 days, I was fucking
dude
hot.
Oh. For fuck's sake. Did you see that meme that I created the other day? I took this, it was an illustration of a mountain man, and it was, and I added the text. I'm like, me wanting to live off the grid in the wild.
Oh.
And then it was the picture of the fucking, the fat computer guy from, like the fat shut-in computer guy from South Park. Also me spending 4 hours a day on the computer and like waiting on 4 Amazon orders a week.
Of shit that you need to live off the grid. So, one of the things, and actually it'll lead me into the next one on my list, actually, and I think it's on your list as well, but like a lot of people, well, so there's some different genres. We already talked about, say, aliens and zombies, and we think, fuck those. Even though they're fun, it seems unrealistic. But EMP is a big, is a big
and there's
genre.
Even like different, I consider these kind of like subgenres. And there's like 2 flavors of like EMP. There's like EMP, and then there's, what is it, CME? Or
CME, so EMP, I don't even know what EMP stands for, but it's the
electromagnetic pulse.
Yeah, I guess I did know what it stands for. Fucking dummy. Electromagnetic pulse, which can happen after a nuclear bomb goes off. You get an EMP, but there's also just EMP devices that essentially just create a big EMP. They don't necessarily create the. It's not a side effect of the nuke. And CME is a coronal mass ejection, which basically is just the sun. It's a sunstorm,
solar flare,
solar flare, which happen all of the time. And there was a book. I can't remember what it was called. We both just read 1 Second After. Is that what it's called?
1 Second After is EMP with a terrorist attack.
Okay.
We both read 48 Hours.
48 Hours.
That was the CME, yeah, Country Music Awards. That's a possible apocalypse too.
Right there.
But also called a Carrington.
Yeah,
Carrington event.
So, kind of. The CME is a coronal mass ejection. A Carrington event is a huge coronal mass ejection, which would be a game changer. So a Carrington event is like a
Carrington event
is like a mass extinction event, right? But anyway, interesting, and I didn't like the book. It was a fucking bummer. The 48 Hours.
Yeah, it also kind of sucked in all the ways, but
the science was interesting. The science was solid. So I didn't know anything really about CMEs other than the fact that they happen. But essentially, the sun constantly is having these solar flares. They shoot out all over the place, and we just don't happen to be in the way of them all
they might fuck
often.
with our electronics in very small ways.
Yeah.
And these are very small. Nothing. There hasn't been a significant one really since the late 1800s.
Yeah.
And it fried
the telegraph.
Yeah.
And shit.
Melted telegraph wire and shit.
And that was a pretty amazing, a big one, because around the Earth we have the magnetosphere, and the reason we have northern lights is because of CMEs. That's what actually causes the northern lights. It's the coronal mass hitting our magnetosphere, and our magnetosphere protects us. If we didn't have it, we would just fry of radiation all the time. And what happens with a coronal mass ejection is it pushes through the magnetosphere, and then that essentially is a natural EMP, and it fucking fries out all electronics. And then a Carrington event is a really, really big one. And that was
Carrington, because they called it Carrington level
event.
So a Carrington event is
it's
what you do not want to see.
And in that book, it basically, they had 48 hours to prepare for the end of the world and try to hide people away, and it was all right, but it was. But I enjoyed the science part of it. So either one of those, they're kind of the same. The thing about an EMP is you kind of got to have a bad guy. If it's a CME, you don't really have to have a bad guy. You don't have to have a bad actor. But again, for the most part, I think those things, though coronavirus has not showed us this. 2 years ago, I would have said, I think we could handle pretty much anything as long as it like wasn't ongoing. Like if we had if it basically, all electronics were wiped out, I think our civilization would survive. Boy, now I don't know, because like just fucking having a mask mandate almost fucking like.
Well, that would have been okay if it would have been accompanied by all our electronics getting knocked out.
Yeah.
At least the internet.
Can you? Well, yeah, but actually, no, because like think about like how much during the lockdown, how like much electronic and internet, and all that stuff, how much more of that everybody did, because, fuck, it's the only reason the Tiger King, like, got any traction was because it just happened to launch right at the beginning of Corona.
True. But then people started taking their medical cues from him.
Can you imagine being in lockdown and not having fucking Netflix or any other streaming service? Or television?
On one hand, I would like to think that I would get a lot of shit done. On the other hand, a lot of that would be murder and robbery and all kinds of shit.
It would be tough.
I'd be forcing my neighbors to like reenact my favorite scenes from my favorite shows and stuff like that,
The book I was talking about was 0 Day Code. And now that I say that, when I think of 0 Day Code, that wasn't an EMP, was it?
0 Day Code. Let's see. That was a cyber attack. Yeah.
That was the one. Well, that was the multi-pronged cyber attack.
Again, the Chinese.
That was when the Chinese. That was the one.
That was
the
that
famous
really
one.
well thought out, really clever cyber attack.
Super. That was the part of that book that I liked so much.
Fucking
was the
diabolical.
Attack. And one of the things, and we've talked about it before, was that they changed the fucking Facebook status of people in the military in relationships from married or in a relationship to it's complicated, and it fucked up a bunch of shit. And that's like the most hilarious attack ever. And yet,
I mean, that's not the only thing that it did.
No.
But that was one of the... There was a fucking laundry list
like,
of evil, brilliant things that this fucking...
That was like
the cyber attack
literally
did.
One sentence. There. But I laughed so hard about how, like, thinking about the ramifications of just that one little thing. And
the Pentagon is trying to get a hold of you. Right. Sorry, you're getting your fucking phone
your phone is blown up. What the fuck you mean it's complicated?
You fucking punk ass bitch. Yes. I'm sorry. I'll be there. I'm dealing with something. Yeah, I'll be there.
I really enjoyed that one. John Bingingham.
Yeah, and like I like the characters in that. And there's 2 more of those. There's 3 in that series.
I read all 3.
Oh, did you? Yeah. I've only read the 1.
Oh, yeah, I read all 3.
And I'm definitely going to read the shit out of the.
And it like the book 1 and 2. I really, really liked book 3. I felt like it got a little, live happily ever after-ish kind of in the end. Mm-hmm. But there's a Land Rover is a kind of a key character in book 3, and I love myself a Land Rover, so I was like, and he's a pretty damn good writer. And they're
totally different ball game than a lot of the stuff that
but it was just interesting because he was talking about them climbing up on the roof of the Rover, on the ladder on the back of the Rover, and getting up on and using it as a perch for their lookout and everything like that. And I could just totally like put myself there and see it, and I was like, I love the Rover.
Only Kyle never gets to climb up on the ladder on any vehicle, because if you
I'm gonna put a heavily fortified roof on that thing.
Fucking well, I used to have a ladder on my fucking Land Rover till fat ass wanted to take a look around, see what I can see.
Going back to the fucking The Walking Dead, that would be funny. Like, they always they're driving around in their like caravans or whatever, and there's Kyle getting up there, look, go, shit.
Fucking, if I was a character on The Walking Dead, my chief weapon, like, oh no, we're surrounded by zombies. There's a horde of them. Hold up, quick. Throw barbecue sauce all over them. Then fucking I dive in, and it's like a fucking like half buffet, half mosh pit. Fucking.
So have I read
zombies are trying to bite me, but I'm eating them.
About eating zombies?
Oh yeah.
Okay, we have on here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
I've used that, because I've used that barbecue joke like 3 times.
Oh, okay.
And we have talked about, like, are they edible?
I think they're edible,
But
at least in the world of The Walking Dead. Like, they got to be edible, because I mean, as long as they're not rotten, right? Nothing rotten is edible. But
No.
I mean, you're not going to get you're not going to like get zombified.
God
by
damn
eating
it!
them.
New gimmick: zombie jerky.
Dude, I already wrote it.
Damn it!
Okay, listen. I'm going to tell this fucking story again. I probably already told it. But back, I don't know, Peyton was like 12. He was obsessed with The Walking Dead. He was obsessed with the end of times, and he wanted to like start a YouTube channel called Survive and Thrive, and he wanted to show people how to like survive the zombie apocalypse. And we did one video, and it was far too long, but it was really well done. And it was the shtick was that he was like held up. We were out at the farm in St. Matthias. He was held up in this barn, and he only had a couple shots left in his trusty 22, so he needed to come up with a new weapon. And he builds a reverse draw crossbow out of basically shit laying around in the barn, and he used fiberglass fence posts and a pulley system, so it fucking pulled in. And he made his killer crossbow. It's actually you probably can't see it, but it's hanging up on the wall behind me.
Nice.
And that one right there.
Oh,
yeah. And the thing is great. It shoots about 40 pounds. It's about a 40-pound pull or whatever. You know, it fucking works great. So we did that video, and then the idea was we were going to continue on, and we never got around to actually shooting any more of them, but we talked about them forever. And one of the ones we were going to shoot was about zombie jerky. So the shtick was because every time we wanted to show people how to do some kind of survival technique. All right, so we were going to make a thing, and I believe it's called a Dutch oven. Not a Dutch oven. But anyway,
that's where you pull the blankets over somebody's head. Yeah.
That's what that is. So what you do is you take a log and you split it into 4. You split it twice, so it's 4 separate sections, and then you pull the log apart.
What
right?
the fuck is that called? It's a real woodcraft thing.
Yeah,
you see the videos and shit.
And then you take and you put your kindling in between it, and then you light it on fire, and then you can cook on the top of the log. Right? It's a real simple, but I mean, if you don't know how to do it,
is it a Dutch stove?
Might be a Dutch stove. It seems something
yeah.
like that. Yeah. So he was going to show people how to do that, and then he'd at the end he'd have his frying pan up there, and then he'd put his little butter in there, and then he'd on the side where you'd see him cutting up this chunk of meat, and he'd stick his meat in there, and he would do like whatever, and then he would start talking about how he'd been wondering if zombie meat was edible, and then he'd be like, and I think it is, man, I do, because like I have killed them fuckers, and I've gotten like blood all over in my face and my mouth, and I haven't turned, so I think he can eat them, and then he's like, and I know everybody's already got it, because if you kill a motherfucker and you don't shoot him in the head, he comes back. So like I'm already infected, so I think I can eat it. And then he's frying up this meat, and then he's like, but I ain't stupid. And then he gets up and he like goes over to the tree behind him and
feeds it to the prisoner,
to the chick that's sitting there. And I don't have it. We'd never fight. But the idea she was gonna be some attractive girl, some big boobies, and she'd be tied to the tree. And of course her shirt would say "vegan for life," right? And then he'd pull down her little thing and then stick it in her mouth. And
eat your food.
Yeah. Oh, and then the other thing is that I have like a severed arm, and I have a severed arm and a severed leg. Just roll with it. And then like as he gets up, you would see the severed arm like sticking out of his backpack. So then you would get the idea that it's zombie meat.
I think we should market the brand zombie jerky.
Well, and then in another scene later in the series that we never got around to shooting, he was going to be walking down the road and he was going to meet up with somebody, and then he'd be like, like, hey man, want some jerky? And the guy'd be like, yeah, I love jerky. And he'd give him a couple sticks of jerky, and the guy'd be eating it, and then he'd go, man, this is really good. What kind of jerky is this? And he'd go, Fred. So we should, one of these days, we should shoot those things. It'd be fun. All right. So yeah, 0 Day Code, super fun one.
Yeah, great.
That was the one that had the judo
Yeah, the judo instructor.
And a female judo instructor.
And she, like, in the guy, I mean, like, as much as I don't love, like I said, I don't love the ones where, like,
you got the super soldier?
The guy, yeah. Like,
I liked him, though.
Yeah.
He had super bad PTSD.
Yeah.
He had a fucking dog that was like his companion animal, and like he needed his dog. He suffered from horrible anxiety attacks, and yet he could get shit done when it needed to get done.
Yeah, and he was like, and he wasn't like Joe super badass. He was a soldier that was working at a golf course.
Yep.
And fucking like just a kind of a low impact,
trying to just kind of like hold his shit together.
Yep.
Had this dog that was like his companion animal, and yet, but then when shit hit the fan, he wasn't like, oh yeah, I've been waiting my whole life for this. No, he was like,
yep.
I guess I have to step up and I have to kill again.
And he was just like trained and competent.
Competency goes a long way. But and also the willingness to kill. I mean, let's just face it. Like, people in these post-apocalyptic books who are like trying to hold themselves to some kind of higher moral standard that really only applies in our current civilization. I mean, they ought to die because it's not the way it works.
Yeah, I mean, it's another form of frailty that is gonna, that would hold you back.
Right.
And I mean, as much as it makes you seem like more elevated or whatever to really agonize over the tough decision that you had to make, like sometimes they agonize over what shouldn't be tough decisions.
Right.
And it's hard to empathize with a character like that, because I think at the end of the day, like most people, if you're talking about like you and your family's, your group's survival,
right.
Like you're not going to lose a lot of sleep over fucking, murking some fucking like murderous, rapey fucking like marauder,
Right.
That's not going to keep you up at night.
No.
What would keep you up at night is fucking not doing it and losing a member of your fucking group.
Exactly. Right.
So like those characters, like, okay, that's cool. Humanize them a little, like that's okay, but don't fucking overdo it because you'll lose me and I'll start rooting for that character to get his fucking head cut off or bit by a zombie or something. Even if it's not a zombie, like Apocalypse book, I'll be like, man, I hope a zombie shows up and kills this kid.
Yep.
Eat that motherfucker.
I really, I do think, and it probably was in the third book. Oh my God, yes. I want to tell this. I think it was in the third book. So this guy, I wouldn't even say he was the main character, but one of the main characters is got PTSD.
Is this a spoiler?
Not really. No, I don't think so. I just cried like a bitch. So this, oh man, I don't know if I can tell the story. So this guy, who's got PTSD and he has this fucking companion dog who's just a great dog and like fucks people up and everything like that. So there ends up in like the third book, they're in this really bad situation and there are some kids involved or whatever. And this kid who's like 12 years old ends up having to fucking kill somebody. And he's really fucked up about it or whatever. And the guy goes over to him and like is going to like kind of like talk to him. Right. And like, and all he says is he says, hey, I can't remember the dog's name. He's like, hey man, that's a tough day, huh? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, could you just do me a favor? Jack gets really upset after things like that. Could you just, I was a fucking puddle.
That's pretty solid, though.
Right.
That's good shit, man. That fucking guy, that author's pretty legit.
Because the thing is like, even in my work, I work with some kids that have some pretty serious trauma. And man, like the taking care of a dog, even though that dog didn't need to be taken care of, is a powerful fucking thing. Oh. God damn it, I need a dog. All right. Let's move on before Matt turns into a puddle.
Here's a spoiler, although I don't which was America Falls, the one with the teenagers. Teenagers against the world.
That one sounds so stupid. I don't know.
It is pretty stupid. But one of the main characters does get killed by a pack of fucking feral dogs.
Oh, actually, we should definitely make that a note because I think that's one of the things that is lacking in a lot of post-apocalyptic books.
I agree.
Is that,
I agree.
Like we don't like in the Postman they touched on like the fact that like there was now like a mountain lion crossed like fucking tigers and shit because they were or maybe they're tigers, lions or whatever, but they just touched on it. But dude, like seriously, especially if the population is reduced, the human population is reduced, and we introduce like non-native animals, especially cats, man. Fucking, which I mean, there's gonna be some fucking hippy dippy dipshit out there that's like, we gotta let the panthers go, and maybe they do. Maybe that's the right thing to do. But you fucking introduce super predators into an environment, like people don't think about it, and then also dogs, because I'm terrified of them anyway. But just going up on the res, like there are packs of dogs that have that like
with no fucking fear of humans,
that pretty consistently fucking attack people and so on and so forth. And it's like, I just can imagine that would be a bad thing. Remember Odd Billy Todd? They did a little bit in the town. There was and he ends up befriending the dog, one dog,
fucking the super dog.
Yeah,
that was kind of one of the dumb.
You did. So I loved the dog. They just one of the problems is like you said, like he became kind of a main character and then he just kind of pooped.
Disappeared.
Yeah, which I mean,
I guess he that big Rottweiler just rode off into the sunset. Yeah.
Well, he was still around, but he just did. He just became less
but
of
they
a
just
character.
didn't talk about him anymore.
But I mean, the thing is like you need that when you're early in, and then it becomes less important. But yeah, I wish they would have kept him around. I don't know. Yeah, but I definitely get emotional when it comes to the animal. Like,
well, dogs showed up in 1 second after too.
Okay. I don't really remember.
So yeah, because they ate the family dog.
They ate the family dog.
You read 1 second after.
Yeah, I just don't remember what.
So with the forward by Newt Gingrich. Which turned me on right away.
Now, is that the EMP one or the CME one?
That was the EMP one.
Okay, liked that one as well.
And yeah, it was much better written than the norm.
Fucking Sam Gibbons jumped my shit about Newt Gingrich. Fucking A, Sam. I wasn't like, God, I want to suck Newt Gingrich's dick. I just said he was an interesting person.
It's because you already sucked Newt Gingrich's dick.
Well, it's not that I wouldn't.
But that's none of my business.
Didn't want to. No. But Newt Gingrich wrote the foreword to this book. But
they talked about this book like in Congress.
Well, he was asked to write it, right? The author was asked to write a book about a possible EMP attack. That's what I understand. Did you read the foreword?
I did not read the foreword.
Yeah, shut up. So Newt Gingrich.
I knew that the character. So the main character, John Matherson, is not so loosely based on the author, William Forstchen.
It takes place in the town he lived. And everything like that.
With a guy with the same academic background who works at the same job that he has, and basically is a big dickified version of. So the main character is basically a big dickified version of the author. Which
nothing wrong with that
is not a good look in my opinion.
Well, whatever.
Like
write about what you know.
As funny as it would be, though, like I would love to write like a story where I am the hero, big dickified, and it would be like I would be like a cross between Captain America. And
Albert
Black Einstein,
like Captain America,
James Brown, maybe, I don't know. No, but it's just funny because like when you idealize a version of yourself and put it in print for everybody to see, ooh, balls! Like,
whatever. But here the thing is what I like about what's that fucking author's name?
William Forstchen.
So he's the same guy who wrote the 48 Hours.
48 Hours, yeah.
So what his specialty is, and I think he does a really, really good job at it, is he researches the fuck out of something.
And he is an academic. He's a professor. He's a professor of military history.
To me, he's a lot like his books are a lot like the Lord of the Rings, in the sense of like, Who wrote the fucking Lord of the Rings?
Tolkien.
Jesus Christ. Tolkien didn't want to write a novel. He wanted to write something where he could use his languages, right? It was about his languages. It wasn't because he was a linguist. It wasn't about the fucking novel. Well, this guy writes.
And Tolkien might have done the same thing because, as we know, he was 3 feet tall and had big hairy feet. He little dickified a version of himself.
But what he does is he researches the shit out of some issue, coronal mass ejection, EMP, and then he creates a story around it. The story itself, he's not a fantastic story writer. The characters aren't super compelling.
Here's the thing.
Whatever.
I found out that
but the fucking science, the EMP science that he did in there, it's spot on.
I found out that that story is like pretty much the same story as Alas Babylon, which was wrote like in the late 50s.
Okay.
And is one of the like cornerstones of the genre or whatever, which I it seems like it would be outdated, but now I've read so many good things about it that now I have to fucking read it.
So basically the story, small town,
yes,
how it survives or how it
EMP
endures.
Attributed to like, and they never really clear up for sure, you know, like as far as I could tell, it's mostly they mostly conclude that it was a terrorist attack.
In 1 second later?
In 1 second later, yeah.
No, it's North Korea.
Well, like terrorist attack, like funded by North Korea and Iran.
Yeah.
Or some shit like that. Like via shipping container, like devices in shipping containers.
Yep.
Like detonated like offshore or something like that. But so
it was
those places are now parking lots in this.
It was a very realistic and very hard science. Like the premise he outlined in 1 second after was something that definitely could happen.
Yes.
And something that we don't have much of a defense for.
No. And that's
the important part.
Yes.
So Newt Gingrich, and who I am a super fan of course, asked this guy to basically write. I
was going to wear my Newt Gingrich T-shirt today.
To write a book. You are wearing a regular pocket T-shirt. Like
Damn
I've
right.
never seen you wear just a plain Jane shirt. I'm wearing a Highlander original. This is a new one. He just gave me this on. He calls it Chaos. I was like, fuck yeah, dog. Basically, just was asking Newt Gingrich was asking him to write a book about like a possible EMP attack, and that's what he did. I mean. So like I don't know, I liked the premise quite a bit.
And apparently
I just thought
Gingrich
the rest of it was kind of shitty.
Has been a proponent of like hardening our like electronic infrastructure and stuff, and you know, to make sure things like this do not happen. Which that don't
doesn't make the rest of his politics right great.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Sam.
It doesn't make a lot of shit about him palatable. I just happen to agree with him on this particular issue because whether it's like natural or man-made, this would be a fucking horrible disaster. And this book kind of helps you get your mind around that because it's some really gritty, really realistic situations. And like if you don't have cars and you don't have like a lot of this machinery and you don't have computers and shit like that, it kind of puts into perspective how, and this is one of my favorite fucking things about this book, how labor-intensive survival is in a world without these things that make our lives so much easier.
Especially in a climate that freezes.
Well, and see, this was North Carolina, you know? So, I mean...
Wasn't Minnesota.
Yeah. It really fucking puts that shit in, you know, really helps put that shit in perspective. Yeah. Because, like... What would it take to survive? You know, like you think about how much it takes. You read this and you think about how much it would take to survive in North Carolina, and then you're like, "Fuck me," you know? Oh my god! So
his impetus for writing that book, where it was, and so on and so forth, apparently, according to him, and I actually think this was the forward to 48 hours, or whatever. But he was talking about writing that book, and they had a 9-day power outage.
Yes.
And this 9-day power outage, like, already started to fucking unravel, like, the whatever. Like, he was talking about how the power company came out to like check the lines to make sure that they were all like running, so that when they turned the power on, there weren't fires and shit. And like, they were being like fucking like harassed by people saying like, oh, where's my power? Where's my power? And they like, dude, no, we're just checking the lines. We have no way to turn on your power. And there were like people like getting violent over it and whatever. And it's like, that's 9 fucking days.
Yeah. Like people are, yeah. He talked about like the guys working in that cul-de-sac and the people fucking like, and some of the dudes got pissed off and pulled their fucking cars up at the end of the cul-de-sac, like they were going to fucking hold them prisoner until they turned the power back on.
Right. And this is a guy whose job it is to look and make sure the power lines aren't broken. He does not. What do you think? He's going to fucking pull out his walkie-talkie and be like, all right.
Yeah. I mean, all right, as unreasonable as people are.
Turn the power on to the cul-de-sac. I guess we got no ability to do that.
And people are pretty fucking unreasonable in the best of situations. You know, take away some of their fucking creature comforts and shit like that and watch them just.
So here's something that is interesting.
Become savages.
And I actually haven't thought about this movie in a long time, and I'm going to have to dig and find out what movie it is. The only person I can remember being in it is the guy from Any Which Way But Loose. Do you remember that show?
Clint Eastwood?
No, or maybe that's not the right show. Okay.
Clyde? Was he an orangutan?
No, okay. Who cares who was in it? God damn it. Anyway, but it was like it was a pretty low budget show, and it was about a town, and the power goes out in the town completely, and they have no radio, no TV, no nothing, and they don't explain it. You have no idea why the power goes out, but it kind of shows the progression and how like.
You're talking about blackout.
Is that what it's called?
Pretty sure.
And then
it's a little older.
Yeah, it's probably 90s.
Yeah, it's kind of like a made-for-TV movie type.
Could be.
Feel.
Wasn't great. But it was interesting. The part that was interesting is how the lack of information, like you have no fucking idea why shit is the way it is.
Yep.
You have no answers. And then if anybody of any kind of authority shows up, you want answers. Like these fucking poor guys that are trying to like, they don't know what the fuck's going on. They have a job.
Yeah, I think it does sound like Blackout. Was there like a vet that was kind of preppery?
God damn it! Like
and,
seriously,
there was like a gang of guys that eventually like fucking like kidnapped some people and shit like that.
Could be.
Yeah.
I hardly remember it. I just remember the idea of having no idea what we're in such a time period where we have like up to the date information on everything, and most of it's bullshit, right?
Yeah.
But what happens when we have no information and people are like, well, the power's out. When's it coming back on? I have no fucking no idea.
Well, see, and that's one of the things like
I have no idea.
That in our like shared universe and stuff, like that's one of the things that I'm going to be leaning on. You know, like I can hide a lot of ignorance about some of these technical things. If I just know like what kind of, you know, like if it's like EMP or whatever, well, cool, that solves some problems right there, because people would just not know.
Yeah, just let me know what
boom,
works and what doesn't work.
You know,
and I might make you like the character might have his beliefs on what happened, but that has no bearing on whether or not that's true.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting. But I just can imagine how frustrating it would be to just have no idea. Like the power goes out. When's it coming back on?
Yeah.
I have no idea. Why is the power out? I got no idea.
And how much you would crave, like how far would you go to learn this thing? Or would you just get like, because, you know, it's hard to go right like 100% into survival mode if you are going to, if the lights are going to come on the next day.
Like when is it time to take the gloves off?
Sure. Yeah. Right? And what about interpersonal stuff?
What if you take the gloves off a little too early?
Yeah. And then you go to prison.
And now you go to prison because you're like, dude,
you're a fucking looter, or
right,
you're a murderer.
You just killed a couple people.
Shit like that. Hard to know.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
Problem.
Interesting. Yeah,
but
that would actually be an interesting, maybe short story. Just about somebody who had kind of a prepper. This is an interesting. Okay,
and all of a sudden, the lights came on.
Right. Like maybe somebody who was like a little into the QAnon or something and like not quite 100% there and just waiting.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden some shit hits the fan.
You're balls deep in your like, fucking SHTF scenario.
And then it's like, just kidding. Like it was just
oops. That guy worked. Turns out that guy worked for the power company.
It was just one of those transformers blowing.
Damn it! But fucking 1 second after that, the whole that survival thing, and it's harsh. Like people start to starve and all that shit, and like I said, it got me thinking about like what it would take to survive up here in Minnesota, and I think I mentioned there's a guy who's on a prepper site a prepper group that I belong to on Facebook, somebody in the group mentioned like where are you at, like what's the political climate there, like how prepper friendly it isn't and stuff, and I'm like, Minnesota's a blue state, but it's pretty fucking red once you get outside, like Duluth and Twin Cities, and I'm like, and as far as survival goes, good luck.
Don't be coming here, baby.
Yeah.
But
then this new arrival, this cat that just moved to Minnesota from Oregon, has not spent a winter here yet, was like, nope. Like, he's like, he's a nice dude. But he's like, well, soon because of global warming, Minnesota will be a great place to be because da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, I bit my tongue because I wanted to be like, son, have you ever fucking, like, what burning wood through a winter here is like? You know how fucking labor intensive that shit is, especially without, like, a chainsaw? Like, you're going to hand cut all that shit and fucking stack it and cure it, like,
Well, and, like, it's really, 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 really hard for people who have not been through 40 below to understand exactly what 40 below consists of.
Most of the world doesn't have a fucking concept of what that shit feels
we're
like.
fucking hardened Minnesotans. And we can't survive it.
No, God.
Most of us would just freeze to death because, truthfully, maybe 5% of houses are really prepared for like heating without fuel oil or without electricity or without propane.
Yeah. I'm okay. I got a fireplace.
Right.
Nah.
Yeah,
you're off to a good start. You got one of the foundations.
Probably live in your living room.
Yeah.
With like everything else. And the thing is that's a very small percentage of houses anyway that have fireplaces.
Absolutely.
And people are like, well, but it might have natural gas. Yeah, but baby, that doesn't work without fucking electricity. Like even just a forced air furnace, maybe that natural gas stays on, but if there's no electricity, the fan don't blow. It doesn't work.
I've got a huge fireplace. I like your vaulted ceiling too.
Yeah.
That's going to work against you.
Well, and a huge fireplace is a liability in the sense that, whatever. And I was thinking just a little bit about it, and you know what I think might be the right, like, choice in a situation like that? A fucking fish house. A tiny fish house with a tiny wood stove. It's super efficient.
I've been thinking about that too. That's why, like,
is that why you're asking about a fucking? Is that why you're asking about a shipping container?
Oh no!
Oh,
that's
I was
just
like, I want to know what your
for
plan
storage,
is.
but those things are also pretty versatile.
I would love to have a buried shipping container, like a shipping container, like 3/4 buried.
Well, also, like if you bury it well enough, it can be a permanent structure, and if you bury it well enough, you're not going to get fucking taxed for it, and you don't have a permit and shit, which is fucking infuriating.
No, you just put skis on it. If it has skis, it can technically move.
And I was thinking about a shipping container because, like, the whole idea of like, I'd like to build and here I go again. It's just like the driver's license thing. Can I have your permission if I pay for it to build a shack on my land, which I've also paid for and pay taxes on? Like, so is that okay?
You're sounding a little libertarian to me.
I know.
No, I agree with you. But unfortunately, like I don't have land. I don't have any, like, all of those things are quite a bit beyond my, like, financial ability to achieve. But dream scenario, I would love to, like, have a little piece of land somewhere that's relatively secluded and, but do a buried when I mean buried, I mean like 3/4 buried. So the
Yeah.
top of the shipping container would still be out, and then you would plant over the top of it, and then you would have your little fortified bunker. It's a pretty badass, but the fuckers they've tripled in price since COVID.
They've gotten expensive.
Tripled.
Yeah.
You used to be able to get a 40-footer for $2,000.
Yeah. Now it's
6, 7, 8, if you can find one.
Yeah, a friend of mine just got one. I think he got a great deal on it for like 4.5 or something like that delivered
For a 40-footer.
I think it was 40-footer.
Ooh, that's a really good deal.
Yeah.
Because I've been looking too. Just when you put it out there, I actually did a little Craigslist and like 6, 7 seems like a 40-footer. And then a lot of people were like zero availability.
And those things will apparently stop at 22 round.
Yeah, you really
Nothing
should,
beyond that.
You really should bury them.
Oh yeah.
Plus, God damn it, we're getting geeky on this. But also, like, if you bury it, like, you're using the Earth's heat, because you're going to get down below the frost line, so you're using the Earth's heat to, like, supplement your heating. So a tiny wood stove that's scrubbed so you can't see the smoke from it would heat a shipping container that was buried well enough to, like, live out the winter in complete and total misery.
Yeah, exactly. True. So yeah. Anyway, that was a good one. We really went down a rabbit hole, but this was like, that's what the good ones.
One second later.
Yeah, like
1 second after.
there was a lot. There was a lot of stuff to think about that was in there that it was a little grittier, a little more realistic.
It was
stuff.
Again, he just did a fucking fantastic job on the science of the EMP, just like he did a fantastic job on the science of the CME. Like, he really lays out how it can happen and what the consequences are. I think his story rating is kind of horseshit, but whatever.
Yeah, and I don't think I would love William Forstchen. I didn't love the character John Matherson, but I did love a lot of the things that he wrote about and how gritty and realistic he made it and stuff. Like I said, they wound up killing and eating the family dog.
I don't, for some reason, remember that. But
his daughter was sick. His daughter, the diabetic, and that's another thing.
People don't think about
an electromagnetic pulse. Like we talked about earlier. Your insulin-dependent diabetics dead. Most of the people in nursing homes dead. Even pacemakers dead.
You don't even need to. You don't even need to have an EMP for that. So remember the early days of COVID when
you could live in Texas.
Fucking Texas was crazy. That was fucking crazy.
Yeah, shit like that. Like, people think that, so many people think that the whole prepper thing is just silly. Until you wind up in a situation like Texas.
Guys in Texas. I was listening to this to NPR one day, and this guy was reporting from Texas, and they were taking turns going and sitting in the car because it was the only place that was warm enough to so they were
fucking natural,
and they only had so much gas in the car, so they had to time it out and take turns and shit like that. And he's he's a fucking reporter,
and some of the shit that happens,
and it was only freezing. I think it was 12 degrees or something like that. Which 12 degrees is fucking horrible. 12 degrees is horrible. We're talking about 40 fucking below zero here, right? Can you if we had a statewide power outage for 3 days in Minnesota at the peak of winter, I cannot imagine the death toll.
Dude, I'd have to hunker down up at the palatial familial estate just to try to survive.
I would have to slice you open with a lightsaber and crawl inside. It would be my only choice.
Yeah, I would keep you warm. I am a furnace.
And then
but I would probably stink inside.
You would carry me around like a little baby.
You just make a pouch out of it. Yeah. This is Matt, but I call him Joey.
He's my conjoinal. I have conjoinal twin mylexia.
Hello. Yeah, that shit got weird.
I was just gonna say that you don't need to have a fucking EMP pulse to not have insulin.
Yeah.
Just remember those early days of COVID, and when there was no we weren't going to be shipping in from China and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now, thank God, it never actually happened. It never happened where there was a major insulin shortage or whatever. But this was a fucking little baby pandemic.
Yeah.
This was the best possible scenario.
Yeah. This was a dress rehearsal.
Not even, and we fucking blew it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we are not ready for the fucking opening day, and
not quite ready for prime time or whatever.
We're not ready. We're not ready for fucking public access. So, and I think that proved it. But anyway, yeah. But that is scary. Yeah, insulin dependent. Like, bam. I just had an interesting conversation with a guy who I don't know very well, but he was really interesting because he's type 1 diabetic and he's super healthy dude. But he just found out that he was he said he's type 1.5 diabetic. And I actually was talking to him about it, and I was like, man, I'd be really interested in having you on the podcast because I'm really interested in this. So his pancreas doesn't make insulin sometimes, right? And does other times. So he's got to has this really like, well, shit, I just don't know where I'm at, and he has to whatever. But he uses all this technology to keep it to figure out where he's at. It was super fucking interesting talking to him. But I asked him about that if it scared him in the beginning, and he said, yeah, that was a really, because he had just gotten diagnosed and he was just figuring it out and he was just starting to, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, we're not gonna be able to get insulin. He's like, well, fuck, come on, pancreas, I hope you work during this time. But he never had a shortage. But cool. Yeah, my turn.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is my last one.
Yeah, I've only got one left too. I don't even know if we wound up with 10. This might be
The
11,
Locker
might be
9.
You've told me about
now.
that.
So John Howard, friend of the show, he recommended this book to me, which is really interesting because it's unlike any other of the books that John Howard has recommended to me, dude, what the fuck is up with Seven Eves? Oh my God, you listen to some boring fucking shit. Oh my God.
Fucking smart people read boring books, man.
It's really he likes hard science books, right? Oh. So do I. I like my aliens to be based in some kind of reality. That's the stupidest thing to say in the world. But I do like the idea of following the rules of relativity and so on and so forth.
Sure.
It's interesting to me. But this fucking book is so goddamn boring. And really long. I'm trying, Howard. I have fucking 4 hours left and I'm like, I just can't do it. Fuck. Anyway, but this is another record. But I
can't start those books because I'll fucking suffer through anything no matter how much it sucks.
And premise-wise, it's super interesting. But goddamn it, I do not want to talk about 70s. And he's recommended several other books that I've really liked. Really, really liked. But this is up there. Hail Mary's the best one, but this one's up there. And it is about it's about a father who's a prepper, and he sends it, and his daughter's off at college, and shit hits the fan, and she has to make her way across the country to get back to him.
That is a trope that shows up in about half, at least half of.
So premise-wise, books in this genre, not that great. Actually, though, but fucking the father's preparations, spot fucking on, right?
You told me really, this guy's uber prepper,
and he is an uber prepper. He has some 70-some fucking books or whatever. He's and like you were talking about before, he is a character in the book pretty much, and it's about a writer who's a prepper who has shit prepared for his daughter. But dude, the stuff that he has laid out for her is fan-fucking-tastic, and the shit that happens, I just really like it. I don't want to wreck anything, but she and her girlfriend are running away from college or whatever, and they're coming to this one place or whatever, and there is a roadblock of guys that are stopping them, and she's not stopping, and her friend's like, what are you doing? You gotta stop, and she fucking plows through them and maybe kills a guy or whatever, and she's like, what the fuck? I think you fucking killed that guy. And she's like,
you think they were blocking the road for benevolent purposes?
She said, my dad said stop for no one. And I was like, yeah, fuck it, that's the right thing to do.
Now I kind of want to.
Now the thing is the question is that it's ambiguous.
See, but that's one of those situations.
Were they even bad guys?
Yeah. And are you that far along in the apocalypse that you can do shit like that?
But the answer is, it doesn't matter. right? That's the question is, did I just murder somebody, or did I just save my own life? Were they bad guys, or did they want to just stop us for, you know what, I can't actually think of a good reason, so fuck it. Don't stop for anyone. And I really enjoyed the books. And it's I also, you know what, and we said it before that we don't have, that there aren't very many from a female perspective. And no, I'm not 100% sure she's the main character. Well, she's a very, very solid character. Not written by a woman, though, and I don't know that there are. Are there any? Well,
very few.
Well, The Hunger Games.
Jacqueline Druga, that wrote My Dead World. But yeah, there are, there are not very many, written from a woman's perspective. Although there are a lot where, one of the I said I've got that honorable mention that was Wolf of Shadows. I also have a dishonorable mention, and that is the Surviving the Fall books, which are actually very popular by a guy named Mike Krause. Where I said Wolf of Shadows was written from a wolf's perspective. The Surviving the Fall books were written by a chimp, that was the one, I got to save the world on my way home to my family. All the cars got sick. Every car that isn't a wood burning fucking engine and shit is affected by this cyber attack, this fucking virus or whatever.
I wonder if steam engines would come back.
One would think
that would be interesting.
But the writing was shit. The awful dialogue. The characters were shit. The bad guys were fucking cheesy, out of 90s action movies and stuff. They were fucking horrible. Yeah, there's huge holes in the story. It's just fucking stupid. And I did listen to the whole series. They go back and forth between him making his way across the country and then fucking saving the world, to his wife at home with the kids fighting off the raiders and shit like that. Her part was much more interesting and believable. But it was another one where she's kicking all this ass and I'm like, why is she kicking ass like that? She's not
just a normal person.
Yeah.
That didn't, yeah. Right, that's,
I mean, she's motivated.
That Locker 9 was so fucking good because you when you were introduced to her, you don't really know anything about her, but then she starts she's not flashbacking, I guess, well maybe she is, but about the training her father gave her growing up, and it was oh, now that makes sense. That's why we spent all this time at the range. That's why that's why he insisted on this.
It's hard to get your kids into that shit. Gordy has no interest in the whole prepper world and stuff.
I am pretty sure that.
And if he did, he would just be stockpiling fucking Bush Light.
I don't know, Franklin Holt or something like that is the guy who wrote it. I wrote it down, but I can't read it. I'm pretty sure his daughter don't feel that way either. I mean, it would seem pretty whatever. But I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the idea of the training made the difference.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I bestowed. I don't know. I think Peyton might be okay.
Well, I can't even get Gordy to do range day. All he wants to do is shoot pistol, fucking. And I'm like, rifles and shotguns are important. You got to do it all. But,
oh no, I have no problem getting the kids to go out and shoot.
Oh, man.
They both love to shoot. I just can't afford it,
dude.
I'm like buck a bullet. Fuck you guys.
So my last one is called The Last Tribe, which. I gave it another title, Foodies of the Apocalypse.
Okay.
So this is by a guy named Brad Manuel, and the pandemic wipes out 99.5% of the human race.
So it's The Stand or Captain Trips.
Yeah, it's fucking horrible. And but some people survive. This focuses on this one family where the three brothers are, for some, they never touch on what makes a person immune. It seems pretty random, except for these three brothers all seem to be immune. One of the wives is immune. The kid, several of the kids are immune. And it starts with a kid at boarding school, and half the books in the genre. It takes place in New England. So the kid's in boarding school, like outside of Boston, and he's got to make his way to like the family's cabin in New Hampshire. So which, whatever, it's probably a fucking 45-minute drive, but a 45-minute drive is a long walk.
No shit. Yeah.
So,
especially when you have to start avoiding roads and you have to start, right?
And
we don't even think
working
about maps.
Survival.
Like we can't even drive. We can't even fucking read maps anymore.
But yeah, this it was okay. It was pretty good. Now, if in my notes I put great book for anyone who wants to read apocalypse fiction but suffers from anxiety, because it's kind of chill. Like there's not a lot of violence. The tension isn't super tense.
It's like
they mostly spend a lot of time describing what fabulous meals they craft out of what they find or grow or whatever.
That might be kind of fun.
And the most interesting characters are a couple of the female characters. Definitely the most interesting character is like a teenage girl. I think she's like 15 or something, but she's like a super genius. And her parents own a grocery store and shit like that. They're dead. But she's fucking brilliant. She's already like looking at colleges or whatever. She's like gone through school early, and she's super organized and super fucking brilliant. And she like kind of she's like thrust into a leadership role because she's so fucking smart and kind of wise and like beyond her years. So like a couple of the female characters are way more interesting than anybody else in the book. But they kind of, their adventure like starts like, oh, well, we're going from Boston to New Hampshire and shit. And then they, and along the way they collect these people and stuff. And then it goes fucking wild from there. They're like, you're a pilot, right? Like, we're going to get the fuck out of here. And they, because they want to get someplace. And they touch on the whole thing, like finding a more, like a more survivable environment and stuff like that.
So in that particular world, like a plague came through and just killed almost everybody.
Yeah.
So resources are just abundant.
Yeah.
Well, why don't they drive?
There is some driving, but there's problems with that and shit. Like fucking, you got to clear roads because of all the people that died so abruptly.
Motorcycles.
Motorcycles do show up on there.
Or tanks, or bulldozers.
So they do use vehicles and stuff, but like they're thinking, and here they really think long term, like restarting a society and shit like that. Hence the Last Tribe. They do spend a lot. Reading the reviews, I found out I was not the only one that noticed how much time they spent
on the food,
talking about food.
Really? Huh.
And not just acquiring it.
To each their own. I mean, like maybe the person who wrote the book is like really about like I've been getting interested in learning what is it called when you go get shit out of nature, like fucking finding edible
like foraging.
Thank you. Yeah. And it's like
that's what Bear does every time he leaves the front door. Picking up sticks, rocks, all that shit. Right. He's foraging. He's working on it.
Yeah. But I've been interested in like learning more about edible plants and so on and so forth, just for because I don't know that much about it.
No,
I don't know. I remember back in the day, Sprout used to do this like foraging thing, and like fucking cattails are like.
Yeah, the roots are like potatoes or something.
Like every single part of a cattail is edible.
I did not know
at different times of the year.
Oh,
so you can harvest them all year long, but you can only eat different parts of them during different times. And I had some fucking cattail pancakes, dude. They were fucking great. You can make a flour out of them and make like pancakes and shit. And I'm like, I don't fucking know that.
See, those are the kind of skills.
I'd like to really get into that and start to like actually understand like what is edible, when it's edible, I just find that really interesting, and it's a skill that could come in handy if shit hits.
My brother's pretty clever about that stuff, but he goes to Black Powder Rendezvous and sleeps out in the woods and shit like that. Like he has a home too. He's sleeps out in the woods, my brother's a Sasquatch.
Actually, that interesting to think about that. Thinking about oh, I don't really like The Walking Dead, and like they're starting to run out of ammo and whatever. Man, wait, fucking black powder is pretty goddamn easy. And
powder is not that hard to make. Although around here we don't have a lot of the natural.
Probably not, but we might. But we probably could scavenge the ingredients. That's the thing. It's like you're not going to be able to find. Saltpeter and
we'd have to trade for that from like communities
coal,
and the fucking
ash and
Dakotas
those things.
Or whatever.
But I mean, I don't know. I was reading I think it was a Bernard Cornwall book, and I mean, like the fucking powder that the French had during that, that was just horse
very
shit.
Much inferior to the
junk.
Stuff the British used.
And I mean, if they were fucking figuring it out then, we'd probably do it. But yeah, I thought that might be an interesting thing to add to the arsenal
as far as like reloading and shit, like.
Oh, plus, let's just face it, fucking end of times come. I want fucking bracers of fucking
pistols.
Of pistols. And a big giant beard and a fucking pirate eye patch. Why are you wearing the eye patch? Because it looks cool.
And a tricorn and all that.
I like having very little depth perception.
Depth perception is for pussies.
Yes.
But yeah, so The Last Tribe was good. Light on violence.
Heavy on food.
Heavy on cooking. It was an interesting read. It was all right. It was fun.
Huh. Is there quite a few in that series, or is that just a?
It's a standalone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Huh. Not a box set. No, I only read bad box sets.
Yeah.
I went to
that
read
Locker
the rest of
Nine's a box set though. That's a 3 for 1 credit, and I think it's like 36 hours.
Makes
or something.
it so much more worthwhile.
It is worth it.
Well, because some of these, God damn it! Of course, it was the last one. Like 1 second after, I read so I listened to the first one on Audible, and then the second one I listened to on YouTube. And then I fucked myself. So the last one, the third one in that series, I started listening to that on YouTube. And about 2/3 of the way through, that's it.
Oh.
No, I'm like, oh, those sons of bitches, they got me. So now I can buy it, skip through 2/3 of it, and listen to the last third of that book.
God
or
damn.
I can just let it be.
It really pisses me off that Audible will not let you transfer fucking books anymore.
That is...
It's like one of the biggest bummers. I know for a fact.
And right after I started, too. Sons of bitches.
Was it? Because I don't remember. I have no idea. I just know I've given people books before.
No, they stopped that. You gave me a book. They stopped that shit in like April, which is like
give
basically
you a book,
right after. Yeah, you gave me...
Odd Billy Todd?
No, it was the Robin Hood one. The really good one.
Oh, my God. That's one of my favorites.
King Raven or something?
King Raven.
Yeah.
Is that the... Yeah, King Raven is. It's a trilogy. That's another box set.
Fucking great book.
Great book. It's really weird because it's still in my library. Because I was trying to give it to Sam.
Weird.
And yeah, well, fuck you, Audible. Even though I love you, and please don't go away.
Yes, love you. Changed my life. Why you got to do me like that?
Yeah, because it seems so. I can imagine people were abusing it, like starting little clubs where you like switch books back and forth and so on and so forth.
Like we were gonna do.
But dude, I spend no less than I don't know, what's my Audible's $36 a month, and I almost always buy an extra 3 credits. So I'm like $60-ish a month on Audible every fucking month, and I have been for years. I think you can let me give some fucking books away.
I supplement my credits with. With free stuff on Audible and YouTube.
I have gotten, so I was always like, I don't see any of the free. I mean, I always would only see like the little tiny bit of free shit on there, and then like I don't want to see. Now I figure out how to like
search for that shit.
I got a little more crafty about searching inside genres and then finding like whatever. Because I actually was looking when I was trying to put this list together. I was looking through all of my stuff, and then I was looking at other stuff on there, and then there's a shit pile of post-apocalyptic free like fiction. Most of it looks like shit. But whatever.
There's I wish that I liked the zombie stuff more. Like I said, I love the fucking I consider like The Walking Dead really cool, like post-apocalyptic fiction. Like I just don't love zombies, and I know they're like a pretty fucking. I mean, the name of it is The Walking Dead, but I fucking love that. But I just can't, like, most zombie stuff. I can't get into.
The thing that makes The Walking Dead, like, if it was just man versus zombie, we would have lost interest long ago.
But it's also a good soap opera.
But now it's not man versus zombie anymore. Zombies are just a part of the
their background
landscape.
Now. Yep.
It's man versus man.
Yeah.
And so, like, you can't. Yeah, man versus monster is not a sustainable story.
Yeah.
Unless that monster is like sentient. I mean, you can have, but you have to somehow be able to identify and empathize with the villain, or else it's just Jaws. Well, actually, even Jaws, you were able to empathize with him. Actually, you kind of got on his side. Like, yeah, fuck that guy and his spear. But
you're like, maybe humans are delicious. I get it. Whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah. We'll
find out. Day 3.
Fucking The Walking Dead, like they really are just a part of the fucking like part of the background. Just like that. I started watching. I watched the first season of it a long time ago. It's like Black Summer or something like that. Which sounds like porn, but we're like, it's a zombie apocalypse show and shit, and it's got that same feel. It's not all like, I'm just being chased by zombies. People are just as big a threat, if not a bigger threat, than the fucking zombies. And
well, yeah. I mean, if the zombies are stupid, then the people are the biggest threat.
Yeah. And people are like, when zombies are new, people are like trying to figure out, like, okay, we can do this, like they'll respond to this, then we can get away, shit like that.
Man, World War Z, though, that movie. That was like that was a good movie.
That was a save the world movie.
But it was one of the things I really liked.
That doesn't bother me as bad in a movie.
Well, one of the reasons that I really liked that movie and why it worked was because it wasn't sustained. Like, it was like a real short period of time where, this guy's where Brad Pitt's trying to, like, figure it out and get to, patient Z. I really liked it. I actually liked
I bought the director's cut of that, but I haven't watched it since I bought it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I've only actually watched it once, but I just remember really, really liking it.
I enjoyed it, too.
I usually only watch movies once, though.
Yeah, me too.
Which is weird.
A lot of shit doesn't have a big rewatch value unless it's Highlander, and I watch it fucking 272 times.
Which is weird to me because I have such a bad memory, and there's so many shows that I liked.
But see, you reread books. I don't ever fucking reread books.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. I can't.
Dude, I will, like, there are several books. Usually it's not fiction, though. It's usually nonfiction. Or fiction that's really good, like, I just got lost on which one's fiction and nonfiction, doesn't matter. But storybooks that are really heavily into science or whatever, I might listen to right away. But, like, I don't know, there was one I just listened to a while ago called fuck. Yeah, it was good, really good. I got done listening to it, and I just started it right over because it was so. I needed to. There was so much information, I just didn't digest it all. I just needed to, like.
Well, see, there's a lot of stuff when I'm.
Immortality Key. That was the Immortality Key. That was the book. Fucking wonderful book.
I'll back stuff up so that I can listen to something again and maybe again and again. If it's like something that I'm kind of trying to commit to memory, or if it's something that I don't necessarily understand. Like when those books on like Plato and Aristotle and shit like that, I'll back it up, and I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. Now I get that fucking, because I mean, a lot of that shit, like I said, I'm a smart person groupie. I'm not an actual smart person, so I might struggle with these fucking concepts. And by might, I mean I'm definitely going to struggle with some of these concepts.
Can you like do anything? Like, I can do pretty much anything else while I'm listening to something, as long as it doesn't require me to read or like pay attention to anybody else talking or anything like that. You know what I mean? Do you look on Facebook or anything like that while you're listening to stuff?
Like something like that. Yeah, I can scroll through Facebook, and I can carry on a short, interaction. Like sometimes I won't shut it off while I'm like going through a checkout line or something, because Lord knows that fucking happens a lot. Because I'm like basically fucking reading lips and going through the motion anyway. Like,
Interesting. Yep. So like I've done that, but I usually turn it off when I'm going through checkout line. But like if somebody sends me a text message and I look at the text message or I look at the whatever, I'm completely lost as to where I am.
Of course, keep in mind, I listen to a lot of stuff that I fucking already hate. So like being interrupted is sometimes like a fucking blessing, because I'm this close to fucking.
You're funny. Because I typically, and it's not that I haven't stuck with. Usually, I only stick with shit if somebody who I respect recommended it, and I feel like I'm trying to understand it. Like this fucking Seven Eves that John whatever. It's super fucking long and it's super fucking boring, and I'm like, and it's the same guy. I think it's the same guy who wrote that fucking horrible other book he tried to get me to listen to, and I couldn't do it. And I'm like, fuck, I don't get it, but I just want to fucking finish it so I can for sure tell him it's a piece of shit.
Every once in a great while, I'll stick with something. Like I thought about stopping listening to like America Falls, which, like I said, it was fucking stupid in a lot of ways.
And you put it on your top 5.
Yeah. Because it was fun, and there's plenty of shit out there that really sucks. Like all the bad shit that I've talked about that shows up in my top 5, that just tells you how bad the ones that are shitty are. Because there's some really fucking dumb ones. Like the one that I'm listening to right now is just fucking god awful. It's fucking horrible. It's so stupid. It might not be as stupid as the Mike Krause books, Surviving the Fall. I read the funny thing. When I'm done with like that shit, like I read the reviews on that too, and I'm just like, oh my, like the people that give it like fucking glowing reviews fucking loved it, and I'm like, whew, Jesus, like that's rough. But yeah, I do listen to a lot of shit that
things are so subjective though, because every book, and some books I just love, people just say some horrible shit about. And I'm
true,
like,
I read a lot of bad shit about. There was a lot of bad shit about Odd Billy Todd, and like I said, I couldn't even fucking disagree with them.
Yeah, I just really liked it.
I just liked it. Yeah,
it
was fucking fun, and like I said, like fucking prepper porn, that amosexual fucking fantasy shit.
What was your bow and arrow one? What did you say for bow and arrow?
Oh, Archophile.
Archophile. I like that. Yeah. I think bow and arrows are underrated. Everybody should learn to shoot.
I've got that bow, and I think my shoulder is about where I need.
We already talked about that. You have a bow?
Yeah.
Oh, because
Mitch,
I have a buddy down
a friend of mine that watches the show or listens to it. He gave me his backup bow, and it was when my shoulder was jacked up.
Matthews or something. Is it a Matthews?
No.
I do remember talking about it. It's a good brand though.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, it doesn't matter. So I have a buddy, Scott, Big Dip. He's the manager out at Archery Country down south.
Yeah, we've talked about going out there.
Yeah, he's like, come on anytime. I need to get my bow tuned, and then, but God, that sounds fun. It's like a VR shooting range. So you like have arrows. But you're like you use your bow.
I've just got this image in my head of like fucking me drawing back and my arrow like doing that thing where it like stays on the string and like fucking just the arrow's pointing over at you.
We might want to just shoot like a couple of times, but maybe
I'll start with a nice recurve or something.
It's compound's easier to shoot than recurve though.
Really?
Well, yeah, because when you shoot
I read that
when you shoot there's no two ways about it. Like when you shoot a recurve bow, right? When you pull the bow back, you have to the pull increases until it gets to your full extension, and you have to hold it under total pressure. When you have a compound bow, it increases, and then it drops off. So now you don't have. So my bow is a 70-pound pull, so it's 70 pounds here, and it's an 80% drop off. So I can't do the math, but it's like 12 pounds or something holding it back. Now, that doesn't mean you can hold it back forever. That's still kind of hard to do, right? But when you shoot a compound bow or a recurve bow, you pull it back and you let it go because you can't hold it. That's the point. So it's a draw and shoot. When you do a compound bow, and I actually, you use a trigger. I have an actual thing that I hold in my hand, and I pull it back, and then then I aim, and then I pull the trigger, and that releases the arrow. It is the difference between shooting a rifle and a pistol, though. I mean, they're related, but they're different. They take different techniques. They have different pros and cons. There's reasons for both of them. I love recurve. I grew up shooting recurve, and I still have a recurve bow, and I love shooting it. But it's a different thing. It's a different creature. But compound's easier. It's much easier to be accurate with a compound. Plus, on top of that, compound bows have like fucking peep sights and fucking essentially scopes and shit. Yeah. Where a recurve is a sense of feel. Like you don't have any of that weird shit on the side of it. It's just you point at the target and you shoot.
Well, I just wanted to learn to use a recurve because I thought that would be cool when I'm like riding across the plains on my short-legged pony.
Yes.
I figure I just looked. I was looking at myself in the mirror the other day, and I was like, horse archery. Horse archery.
Yeah. You would look good. I do.
God, just go home to my yurt, and yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. We could talk about the Huns, but that's a whole nother.
That's another episode. This has been our apocalyptic fiction. The spitballing guide to apocalyptic fiction.
Yeah, it's fun. So if you guys have any feedback for us about what you think you would like to see in a post-apocalyptic world,
hit
us up because we have some ideas.
Thirsty for feedback. I'm always like, we bounce stuff off. Like we even started a little Discord channel and stuff, so we could like bounce ideas off each other. Because I've never written anything, and I've sure as fuck never written anything good. So
Lies.
I have a lot of ideas, but fuck if I know if they're good ideas or not. So like, and I don't know. Like, there's a lot of pretty basic shit like when it comes to writing and like storytelling. That I am really fucking uncertain on. So I ask a lot of questions. Would this even make sense?
You should get the book On Writing by Stephen King. It's a book he wrote about writing and about how to write and about like practices. It's a really good book.
His stuff is too terrifying for me. I'll have nightmares.
This is a book about how to write. It's not a book about like anything else.
Yeah, his stuff is way too scary for me. I'd get it on get it on Audible, and then I'd be like, I had to stop listening to it because it sucked.
You know what's really weird that for all of the books that are out there, there's not a lot of great books about how to write.
I've there's some stuff online. Actually, there's a lot of like really useful stuff online. But like when I read it, like I've always like read all that shit like at the wrong time when it doesn't really pertain to anything that I'm doing. And then I'll be like, oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, one of the biggest lessons I took away,
I cannot apply this to.
One of the biggest lessons I took away from Stephen King's book was the way to learn to write is to write. Like, and so you have to have a time, and you have to like have a goal, and you have to just do it every day, and it doesn't matter if it sucks. You just have to do it, and then you get better.
I've started I've started taking a lot of notes because like I'll lay there in bed and like start working on a scene, like as I would visualize it, were it real life or a movie or whatever, and then I start like, and then I'm going like, okay, how would I word that? And how would I describe like at what point would I describe this guy? I should describe this guy before, and all that shit, And I was actually just kind of working on one today, working it through in my head, and I'm already like doing that thing where like, which I've done every time I've tried to write anything. I start thinking about it, and I'm like, that's fucking good. That's really good. And then by the time like I get it on paper, I'm like, I'm a fucking moron. That's garbage.
Well, it will be interesting as we go on, if we do go on, to like actually get to see, because I don't think that the author can be the best judge of whether or not their stuff is good or bad. You
Probably
have to have an
not.
audience. It's just exactly, well, yeah, it is, because it's writing. But like, you cannot do comedy in a fucking box. You can't write a joke and know if it's funny. Just because you think it's funny does not mean it's funny. So it's like the only way to tell if a joke is funny is to fucking try to land it. Well, it's the same as writing. You don't know whether your shit's good unless you let somebody read it. So,
Yeah.
Because I've written some totally not funny fucking comedy.
Oh, man. And I'm always surprised, often surprised, because I'm like, really? That is funny? I almost didn't include that because I thought, no, that's not very funny. I never know what the fuck people are going to laugh at.
Yeah.
Okay. Seldom know what people are going to laugh
Right.
at. Sometimes I'm like, oh, that's going to kill. And it's right.
But that's
But
why
then sometimes
comedians
I'm like,
go
this is going to
out-
kill. And I'm like, and crickets.
Yeah, and that's why comedians go out and they refine their work. And that's kind of what you got to do with writing. You got to refine your work. So, cool. Well, this was super fun.
Yeah.
Welcome to the shop. And,
That had to have been 20 minutes, right?
yeah, we wanted to keep this one short.
You know,
Craziness. Well, I know we're done because I have to pee again. So, like, that's my usually. I'm like, okay, that's been a 2-bladder episode. So we're probably pushing 3 hours. All right. Well, we will talk to you guys soon, and have a good one.
I got the blues so bad one time it put my face in a permanent frown. You know I'm feeling so much better I could cakewalk into town. I woke up this morning feeling so good, you know I laid back down again. Throw your big leg over me, mama, I just might not feel this good again. My baby, oh my baby, I love the way she walks. When my girl gets sleepy, I love the way she baby talks. My work done got scarce, honey, all my work, it done got hard. I spent the whole day stealing chickens, mama, from the rich folks' yard. I got the blues so bad one time it put my face in a permanent frown. Now I'm feeling so much better I could cakewalk into town. I wanna go on a picnic in the country, mama, and stay all day. I don't care if I don't do nothing, just while my time away. I got the blues so bad one time it put my face in a permanent frown. You know I'm feeling so much better I could cakewalk into town.